Jansen's wrote, if time changes further away from the further away you are from Earth. Thank you, Nicole. How was the Anunnaki time measured? Any idea? Yeah, they had. That's a good question. Got number one in the class for that. They had three different times. They had celestial time, their time, which was done by Shahs, and then they had Earth's time. So there's basically they had the solar calendar, which is why we ended up with the Dandara calendar and all sorts of calendars back in back in the ancient times. So basically, depending on what they were talking about, would relate. And this isn't me making this. This is Irvin Finkel telling us about it, which is really weird because he doesn't say that that they come from their planet, but he says that there's they had different times. Yeah, just admit it. And they would talk. He would talk about the Shahs, and so the Shahs. I've done videos on it. The Shahs basically it's a celestial time. 3,600 years is a celestial time, which is one of their years for a celestial body. In that, so it's not a celestial time; it's a celestial body, which would be their home planet. Then they have the cosmos, which is a bigger time frame for them. I mean, for us, 3,600 years is huge, but for them, that's just 1 year. So then they would use again, Penn Museum also talks about it. They would use the solar system, not our solar system, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, with all the zodiacs, etc., to measure a different time. And then after the Great Flood, they changed everything to our time here while they were here. So, in other words, they started their own calendar, which was a 13-month calendar, and then eventually they realised that 12 months is better. And so we've got in the Book of Enoch, it literally tells you how Stonehenge or a henge, there was many henges, how henges work. Tells you on the first day, you go read it. On the first day, the sun hits the first gate. They call them gates. Hits the first gate. On the second day, the sun hits the second gate. On the third day, it stays fully on the second gate. On the fourth day, that kind of dialect. And so you end up with them using our calendar for their dates. So yeah, they did, but the difference. So what you're saying is how, when you're going back to your question about the further away from Earth you are. So really, it's only to do with the further away you are from a celestial object. When I say celestial, a massive body of density, which is what creates the time. So if you was in the middle of space, out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, time would hardly move. Your body will change because obviously you're designed to get older. So the only thing that will be in that space is you getting older. The space won't have time, but your body will have time. That's why when the Anunnaki come here, they still got old, even though they technically shouldn't have got old, because obviously our years are shorter than their years. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a tricky one, but yes, they definitely had different times. Sarah's wrote, "Oh, laugh out loud." That was to do with God evening. Doreena's wrote, "Go to the light when we die or not? What's your thoughts? Light is reincarnation." I won't. Fair point. So there's a YouTube video which they took a hell of a lot of liberties when they're talking about certain tablets, and they've sort of made 2 and 2 makes 5. But basically, what they're saying is within these tablets, which don't say what they say, but they're reading it into it, that there is an entity that joins with a person, which is exactly what I've said. And I'll get to the main point. So basically, they're saying that once you die, according to them and their translations, which is not quite like that, when you die, you have a split second to choose between going to the other side or staying. And according to this YouTube video, he says that if you stay, you might be offered the chance again to go back. But apparently, according to this YouTube video, the translations, which obviously is slightly wrong by quite a bit, but let's imagine that they're right. They say that that it's like a holding pattern here for people, and they didn't realise how many people would not choose to go back or hesitate, because apparently, according to their translations, if you hesitate when you're asked, "Do you want to cross over?" As soon as you hesitate, that's it. You're back here. Now, my argument with that is these entities have been with us for tens of thousands of years, probably hundreds of thousands of years. They're thick as crap, and I hate saying it, but they must be thick as crap, because at some point you would go, hang on a minute, these people are very indecisive. They would need to know all the parameters about whether or not to cross over or to stay in the afterlife. So a split second for them to decide, even though supposedly the orb would have been given the contract beforehand, if it's the person that's in control of the orb at that point, then it's stupid, because you're going to get a lot of people going, hey, like me, I'm very logical. I'd like to sit and study all the parameters. And so if we believe that YouTube video, then I'm going to be stuck here, dead on Earth as a spirit for a very, very long time, because I'd like to know all the ins and outs before I make a decision. And so that's why that's another reason why I think that video is a bit wrong, because the orbs would have to be so thick to not grasp that we would need to know a little bit more about stuff. Because even if we was told, or even if the orb was told, we'd have a split second to try and access all that memory of whatever the information is about when you die. You'll be offered the chance to go over. We'd have a split second to try and work all that out, and then decide whether or not we want to go, especially when we might have loved ones still stuck here because they decided or didn't decide, or so yeah. So that's that version, which is kind of similar to, I can see why they went along with that train of thought, because it actually makes sense in some ways. From all the near-death experiences and everything else that I've learned, it kind of makes sense when you have the choice to go to the light. So it's not far off the common sense side of it. The problem I've got is if we go to the other side, let's say we go to the light, am I still a conscious? Is my brain still active? Is my thoughts still processing? Even though I might be with this orb, are they still processing in the background? Just like a computer runs, you can run a program in the background and the computer's still doing its other things. If that's the case, that means then for the rest of eternity, I'll be stuck in this orb with other people, stuck. And that is something I wouldn't want to do. The alternative is being stuck here on Earth and not crossing over ever. If there's no third choice, which is just blink out, which I think is what you're suggesting, then we're. I'd like to know the parameters. That's what I say. I'd like to know, how long is long. So yes, I don't know. I can't answer it really, because the people that's had near-death experiences, etc. Those ones don't cross over, because they. The only real chance we've got of understanding stuff is from hypno-regression, where someone has regressed and they explain the previous life. That's about as close as we get. But even then, I've never heard anyone talking about the process of, moving on through the light. They're normally the hypno-regression is talking about the previous life, such as you was a farmer, you was this, you was that, not when you died. I mean, sometimes they do talk about when they died, because it might have been a traumatic death, but they don't talk about, well, I've never read or heard any hypno-regressions, people saying, okay, so once you've died, what did you do? Did you cross straight to the light? Did you see da-da-da? And then what happens when you cross the light? That's the bit that we don't know. Obviously, we hear stories of loved ones coming and light entities. People have said they've seen these light beings, literally light, in almost in the shape of a human. So I don't know the answer to it, I'm afraid, Dorina. I can't tell you because no one's that I'm aware of has explained what happens once you're there. But obviously, if the orb is, if a medium, not medium, if a hypnoregression person is talking to or accessing the previous memories that the orb was with, I've never heard them say that they've come across another consciousness. It's normally the person's consciousness that's lying there on a chair, accessing the memory of the orb and then explaining what they perceive as what they did, even though I believe that they didn't do it. It was someone else with the other, with the orb, with someone else. D Boys wrote thoughts on why Agistan people dye hair red and goats still in honor of giants, also in India. I'm guessing that's Afghanistan. I don't know. I've never heard that they did that, so I apologise. I don't know. Interesting if they did, because obviously, as we know, a lot of the stories and especially the elongated skulls have red hair, as well as the giant stories. So very interesting. Personally, I think Inanna had red hair. From everything that I've read, I can't say one little thing that says, "Oh, she's got red hair," but you put the collective together, and I think she had red hair. And I think Marduk did as well. I think Marduk might have had red eyes. I think some of them did, like albinos. I mean, to us they're albinos, but to the Anunnaki, that's their natural, what they would normally look like. So, yeah. So I don't know, D-Boy. That's interesting. I've never heard that before, but that's very interesting if they do. D-Boys wrote, Yema still believe in jinn and study it daily. Why do they appear as women with goat or donkey leg? That's just, in my opinion, that's just people making it up. When you look into what people say about the jinn, you can literally, it's everything from a boat to a bird to a snake to possession of a snake. I mean, how the hell do people know that a snake has been possessed? I mean, literally, you go look it up, you'll see people say, "Oh, there was a story of a snake being possessed by a jinn." So I just think people make up a lot of stuff with the jinn. I mean, we hear it on TikTok and on these lives where people make up stuff about the jinn. Oh, I saw a jinn and this, that, and the other, and you ask them to describe it. It's whatever they make up in their head is what they think. That's just my opinion on what happens with the jinn. Jensen's wrote, duck-billed platypus, was that an Anunnaki creation that didn't get binned when they experimented? I've not looked into the duck-billed platypus. I know we do have strange animals. We've got hammerhead sharks and other weird sort of animals that, even the dodo bird doesn't seem quite right. And there's another bird that's about 4 foot tall. I think it's in China. And it's got a huge beak. It's like literally a prehistoric bird. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Massive thing. So yeah, I don't know about the duckbill. I mean, if you look at where now mainstream lies, so you always have to remember that. So ignore what mainstream say. But when you break down where cats, sheep, goats, certain types of cattle come from, you'll find it's Middle East. They'll tell you, oh no, cats came from Europe. No, that's the ones that you find in Europe. But of course, we know cats are over in the Middle East and Near East because we've got mummification of cats by Egypt. Oh yeah, we have, haven't we? Yeah. So don't listen to mainstream stuff. But I've never looked at really. I mean, the best thing to do is try and figure out where platypuses are as a general rule. The majority of them. I'm not saying that that's the case, but kind of try and work backwards from there. So I can't answer. I know, as you know, they have. They did describe many things. The creatures that they did create, if you look at the Beros tablet, were half this and half that. So if we take like or domesticated animals as well. Thank you, History and Coins. Hope you're well. So obviously horses were domesticated by them. That's the mainstream even admitting that, saying that 200,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, the humans changed the genome of horses. Yeah, right. Stupid idiots. The pigs were domesticated, dogs were domesticated, cats were domesticated. But the Anunnaki not only domesticated animals, but they also did the hybrids. So a duck-billed platypus, would that have been domesticated for any reason? Probably not. Would that have been a hybrid creature? Well, then you'd need to find what the other, at least two creatures were that it became one as. Because they didn't, from everything that I've read, I'm not saying they didn't, but from everything that I've read, that they didn't just suddenly make a new creature from something. It was normally a mixture. And if that's the case, now again, you also got to remember that a lot of these animals have died now. So, for example, the Mushu, which was Marduk's pet, looks like a well, it's not a dragon, but people call it a dragon. It's got horns. It's probably about 6 foot tall, standing. Not on its hind legs, just standing. So also almost like the size of a horse. It looks thin. Obviously, we've only got a 2-dimensional carving or 2-dimensional image of it. It kind of looks like it's got a forked tongue. Hard to say. And it's got a tail that kind of has not a club on the end, but maybe like a lion's furry bit. But of course, it's carving, so it's really difficult to know. But that's gone, so we don't know whether that was, Marduk bringing it down from his home planet, or whether or not it was a creature here before the Great Flood and it died out or whether it was one of those abominations that was created by Enki that Marduk fell in love with and wanted. So yeah. It's a hard one to say on the duck-billed platypus. I'm afraid I can't answer it. D-Boys wrote, they say when an egg is in a woman, it's fertilized in bright light also. Yeah, I've seen the video of that. I don't buy that because, yeah. I know the video you're referring to, but you got to remember they've got a metal syringe type thing in a needle that went in and implanted that, and as they're pulling the needle out, you suddenly get a bright white light. Think about that. No, doesn't take an Einstein to work that one out. So it flashes, obviously, because they're probably pulling it outside after being injecting it, or the camera just picks up on it because obviously the camera's infrared. Or ultra, well, I'm not sure what camera they used, but whatever it was an actual camera, not like ultrasound. And so if you've got something that flashes off, so when you've got night vision cameras, which more than likely had that capability, when something you basically it sends out a frequency, and anything it hits, it sort of brightens that up. And of course, if it hits a needle, and it reflects back, then you'll get a bright light. So that's what I think it is. I don't obviously, when they say the conception, I mean that the first thing that that could have happened is that poor little once it managed to get inside, that doesn't necessarily mean it's conception as such, because the two need to symbiotically or whatever the word is, actually join together. So just because it breaks through a wall in an egg, does that mean then that them two have created a new life? No. It has to do something for the egg to fertilize, not just literally go inside it. Otherwise, yeah. So I don't buy that personally myself. That's just my opinion. Darwin's wrote, hi Darwin, nice of you to join. Hope you're well. Scrolling down. This is live. I read every single question out. Slightly behind now, not for 2 minutes, only 9. Nicole has wrote, in your research, have you found that the person that discovered hypnoregression had a near-death experience themselves? Oh God, I can't say I've looked into their life. It's an interesting question. Um, yeah, I've never looked into why the whoever it was, the first person that did past life regressions, actually did it. So I can't answer. It's an interesting, weird question, but it's an interesting one. I'll go number 3 in the class for that. But um, my gut feeling is, so when you listen to uh, people that do regression, not regressions, hypnotizing, you need not a degree or something like that, but you need a level of competence to do hypnoregression, not just hypnotize. So someone can hypnotize someone and say stop smoking, but then you've got the hypnoregression, which is the going back. Now that seems to be, from what I've learned, a specialized subject. So not all hypnotists do that. It's a very specialized subject. And then you've got the ones that can actually go back more than one life, that actually can go past, when talking to the client, go past one life, go past another, go past another. And those ones are even more rare. And I think there's a certain protocols that they need to do on those, to make sure that they're not feeding information, not confusing the client, not getting the client scared, because obviously they're going back different lives, etc. So there's a few protocols that they have to go through to be able to become a hypnoregressionist. So how the first one done it, my gut feeling is I don't know whether he had a near-death experience himself, or he, she, them, they, but my gut feeling is probably they were doing a hypnoregression and normal hypnotize and accidentally come across it. Thank you, History and Coins and Change. That's just my gut feeling, but it's an interesting question. I'd need to look into that. Thank you again, History and Coins. I hope you all guys are all well. History and Coins, right? I'm tired, but I'm here for a few minutes. Oh, bless you. Thank you. History and Coins wrote, no, they're a wild animal. That was, I'm guessing, to do with the duck-billed platypus. Yeah, I've not looked into it, so gut feeling, I would agree with History and Coins, but Doreen's wrote, who created dragons? And then comma dinosaurs, question mark. No, dragons, the original word for dragon was, I have done a video called Dragons Solved. So if we go back to the very first mention of dragons, they're in Sumerian tablets from the Anunnaki, talking about dragons in heaven, which is space. So, for example, they're talking about dragons with a certain cubit length, which is like 300 miles long. And you're thinking, well, and then you get the silly people, excuse me, but you get the silly people here on Earth that say, oh, I found a dragon that's 300 miles long. Yeah, no, you haven't. They show a rock, a couple of rocks, the kind of, they say, look, that's the spine of the rock of the dragon. Well, go there then. Bye. But no, they don't. So no, a dragon was literally a dragon was a comet with a tail, and they even talked about them having horns on their head, which NASA even says that comets have horns, which is really weird, because you think, well, how can it have a horn? But it's basically what protrudes from the surface of a comet. They call it horn. And we can even back that up even more. Of course, I've done the research and got the documentary to do it. But the Anunnaki used to talk about these dragons having diadems, which is a type of stone mineral, and mainstream say that comets have diadems. So that's just one of Christ knows how many bits of evidence that the dragons were comets. And of course, once they entered Earth's atmosphere, they became a demon, which was the original word for a demon when it became a meteorite. Sorry. So no, dinosaurs weren't classed as that. Now, mainstream, because they're thick, mainstream, like that Mushu I was just talking about, which was Marduk's pet. doesn't have wings, doesn't breathe fire, well, not that we're aware of. It's not carved with fire breathing, and it's only 6 foot tall, standing up on its legs. But because mainstream are thick, they called it a dragon. There's no reason to call it a dragon, none whatsoever. But they've called it a dragon. Now going back to Chinese, guess what the Chinese dragon was? Go back to I know you'll say, but it's got a head and it's got a long body. That's exactly what it was. The original, go look back, you'll find that the original word for a comet, for the Chinese dragon, thank you, Jazz, the Chinese dragon was a celestial object that crossed the sky, or heaven. So, and unfortunately, over the years, people would write about, oh, they had fights with dragons. Yes, the Anunnaki had fights with dragons. There's a story called Bell and the Dragon, thank you, Jazz, where one of the Anunnaki has to go and fight it, and it breaks up, and part of it bleeds for years, but it's not bleeding. Of course, when you understand the Anunnaki talk about the celestial objects as alive, they talked about planets as alive, they talked about asteroids, comets, huge objects that just sitting there that's not even moving, planets, and so on. They're all alive, they've all got personalities. And that's the way they spoke. So once you can work that out, when you realise that, when one of the Anunnaki killed this comet, and it bled for hundreds of years, you realise that it's a comet. And again, there's not so many evidence that a comet was a dragon, but over the years, people have just used the word dragon to mean something different. No, there was no real dragons in that way. Jensen's right. You mentioned once the Anunnaki used plant medicine. What illnesses would they have been sensitive to? Well, there's one where they're talking about one of the gods. I can't remember who it was. I think it was a female, had some sort of worm inside her gum. But yeah, they had issues. Enki, there's a tablet with Enki where he's not well. Basically, after they took the stuff from his rib to help with the the story of the very first Homo sapiens, he came down with something and wasn't well, and so there's a whole tablet there explaining that he's got a temperature and he's this and he's that and his ribs killing him and da da da. So, and then I think if I remember correctly, Nimna was looking after him and helping him to get better. So they do have their issues. They're not infallible. What those issues are, there's other tablets, not many that I've read, where they're ill, because normally they like to be seen. Thank you, Dorina. They like to be seen as heroic. I mean, really, they do. It's instead of ego, they have heroic. That's probably, thank you, Dorina. That's probably the best way to see it. So where I'm saying, I'm really smart, blah blah blah, all that baloney. Having an ego saying I'm the best at this and I'm the best at that. They didn't do that. It was more of a heroic. I'm the one that saved you guys. I'm the one that did this and did that, as opposed to sort of like a personal ego. And so they would become heroic in that way. So talking about illnesses is something they didn't really do that I've read. Now that again, they do talk. Well, I say that they talk about, the Sumerian people talked about plant healing, etc., which they would have got from the Apocalou. I can never pronounce that. Apocalou. Basically the 7 sages, which were the Magi, which were the people that came and taught the people over in Sumer first. So they would have been taught all sorts of things, which we know they were, and medicine would have been one of them. So yeah, fair question. History and Course wrote, please before requesting a box, ask in the chat so our True History can let mods know if he wants to accept the chat. Right, okay, cool. Thank you for that. History and Course. Jansen wrote, has wrote, how would they have known plant medicine was a thing? So Nimna, who was the half-sister of Enki and Enlil, and also the daughter of King Anu, she was a chief medical officer. So they had a medical station, and that's we kind of know she was the chief medical officer because there's a, even if we didn't believe that she was, we've got a tablet where she's the one that's helping Marduk create the first Homo sapiens. We've got a tablet telling us that. So if she's not the smartest medical person here on Earth at that point, then what the hell was she doing? Why wasn't there someone else there? So yeah, she was, and they brought down, if you believe the Columbia University tablet, she brought down the elixir plant and probably some other things with it. So they were obviously aware on their home planet of these medicinal purposes, and the elixir plant was the one that rejuvenated people. So if they've got that, and obviously they knew about plants because they brought down barley. They tell us they brought down barley, and that's where we got the beer from, which is what they taught us how to make. We've got many tablets of that, many tablets. Especially, there's the kind of the first main one that proves that we was the ones that was learnt how to use the barley was when Ninurta and his I can't remember who the other person was, but Ninurta was looking after the field. You got to remember, Ninurta was the precursor, was the male version of Cain and Abel. He was the one that dealt with the grain and sheep, like the two females did that were Cain and Abel. They were females. Feel free to watch my amazing documentary on that. But anyway, he and this other character, I can't remember who it was, they were guarding the grain, that was growing in a field. And they had a bolt on it, which when they say they have a bolt on it, it means that they've got a lock, a gate of some type that stopped animals and everything else going in there. So he then went over to Enlil, which was his father, and said, look, why don't we let people make us the bread and the beer and stuff? And Enlil hummed and hawed over a long time and said, okay, let's do that. And that's when we end up with... because at that point, humans were Homo sapiens sapiens, and we had Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel. Yes, and they were the sisters. And so they gave them the job that Ninurta and the other character had. I think it was his brother, I can't remember his name. And so they gave these two women, which we've got the tablet for, where they end up basically getting into a right argument over it. And one was called, wait for it, one was called Grain. Now, over the years, it ended up becoming Cain. I'm not kidding you. That is her name, Grain. So yeah, that's how it all played out. So yes, they did know about medicines before they even came to Earth with plants. Good question. Number 3 in the class. D Boys wrote thoughts on DMT and experience through difference between thousands of people. So I have done a video on DMT. I don't think it's out yet. And it's a really interesting one because I didn't know anything about it, and it's about a half hour long, and I go through all the questions that people probably don't even think of asking about whether or not the experiences are the same, because you get people. Thank you, whoever's doing the hearts. It won't change. We're stuck at 30. We won't get any more, so you don't have to do the hearts. But thank you very much for doing it. But yeah, this is our limit. TikTok limits me because I tell the truth. It will stay at 30, even though it will go up. It will go back down to 30. People get booted off by TikToks. But thank you, whoever's doing the hearts. I do appreciate it. So the answer was that there are some people that actually had, even though they're different, didn't even know each other. Their reports are the same, of the same phenomena that they have having taken DMT. Now the problem there is it because of pop culture? In other words, are they hallucinating the same thing? Like if I've heard numerous times that if you die you see a white light, are they having the same experience because they're subconscious is pushing that forward as the thing that they expect to see. That's the problem with DMT. So it's not. We can't say, because people say, oh, they've gone to another dimension and all sorts of stuff. Really hard to prove. No, obviously you can't really prove it because it's just one person's word. So that's why I was looking at the collective to see whether or not there is people that have all come up with the same things. But the general things that they come up with are things that are in society. It's not like they've all come up with an unknown creature, the spaghetti monster or something that no one's ever even thought of before. If two or more had come up with that, then I would have said, aha, okay, there's something to it, because these are creatures that no one's ever thought of. But unfortunately, the things that they do talk about are things that we've kind of seen in movies and all sorts of stuff. So I'm not saying they haven't traversed or have an out-of-body experience or anything like that, but it's really difficult to nail down and prove, unfortunately. But thank you for the question. Scrolling down, D-Boys wrote, thought on ESP, Shears, Shaman, Edgar Casey, Nostradamus. So I have done a video on Edgar Casey. And when you realise that his wife retrospectively put out a lot of the stuff, she's like, oh, we wrote this when he had his... I mean, come on. We wrote this when he had one of his, sessions, and we've decided to put it out now after something's happened. And guess what? Edgar Casey said that was going to happen. Oh, wow. And people believe that crap. Yeah. So there's a lot of issues with Edgar Cayce. I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but there's a hell of a lot that his wife pumped out after. So my spider senses tingled to hell with that one, and that's over in South Africa. If you're wondering where hell is, feel free to watch my amazing documentaries. And yes, I am limited to 30 people, which is why we don't get many more than 30. Which is exactly what I said, because I tell the truth, and TikTok knows it, and they limit me. Nostradamus, now he's a tricky one, because I have done another video on him as well. The problem was there were people already putting clues in books. See, I'm good. When I research hard. So there were already people putting... So Nostradamus supposedly put these, in his quatrains, these hidden clues about what's going to happen in the future. Problem is, people had already been putting things in books like that, so it's not a brand new thing that he came up with. And so that's the first issue we've got. The second issue is a lot of it's subjective, again, very subjective. So, for example, he said Hisler instead of Hitler. So you could say, okay, well, that's Hitler. But if we wait, so a lot of people say, oh, things have happened. He's talked about the two towers and he's done this and talked about that and that. But the funny thing is, when you look at what people say about Nostradamus, before the Twin Towers, because I looked into him when I was, before the Twin Towers, people were saying, the two, I can't remember what the words were, something like two towers or something. It wasn't towers, but two peaks or something like that. People were saying, oh, they were something else. And so they'd already established that they believed that that's what he was talking about. Then, of course, after the Twin Towers, then it's, that's what he's talking about. But you've changed the goalposts. And basically, if something else happens down the line, so that happens a lot. What I'm trying to say is, people, since his books come out, people have attributed things. You can actually go and look up what people have written about what they believed he was talking about all through the ages, and we're still doing it now. So that, the next atrocity that happens, or the next major thing that happens, people will be pointing out and saying, look, that's what it means. But people had already said what it means, that particular passage means, for something else that's happened in the past. And it's just going to carry on. So, with Nostradamus, maybe go watch my video. I don't want to spoil it because I know people like Nostradamus, but if you watch my video, you'll come to the same conclusion as me, unfortunately. Jansen has wrote, what was it about Earth that aged the Anunnaki? Food, atmospheric oxygen, air ratio. I've wrestled with this one. It could be the photons from the sun, because obviously Earth's nearer to the sun than they were. It could be, as you say, the atmosphere. It could be the food. It could be the gravity. It could be oxygen. It could be anything. So I don't know what aged them. Personally, part of it would be the sun, because they were sunburnt. They're in two of the hottest places on the planet, Africa and the Middle East, and they were here for 400 and something odd thousand years, give or take, depending who we're talking about. And even the Greek gods were called sun-kissed, meaning they were touched by the sun. So the Greek gods were sun-kissed, meaning they weren't always bronze, as they called them. They weren't always bronze, they were sun-kissed. And the same goes for the Egyptians, where the Egyptians were gods were painted brown, but the females were yellow. And that's not me saying this is Egyptian historians saying that they're depicting them as suntanned. I said it years ago, didn't know anyone else had said it, and then one day doing my research, I come across a video of an Egyptian historian saying the reason why these are brown is because they're suntanned. And I was like, yes, at least someone agreed with me. Even though I don't trust mainstream, at least someone's agreeing with me. So with regarding the sun, obviously we know people get wrinkled and look a bit older and possibly have cancer and all sorts of stuff from the radiation from the sun. So is that what's caused them to get older as well? I would probably say they do look older because of the sun. Obviously, there's people out there. On my video about them being sunburnt, I showed some pictures of people that worship the sun, humans that worship they're on beaches every day of the week, and they look probably older than they should be. So I can't answer it. It could be all sorts of reasons. You just have to make up your own reason, really, unfortunately. Nicole's right. Do you think the Anunnaki work with the orbs or other alien species to monitor our nuclear facilities? That's a weird question. I say a weird one because obviously, if the Anunnaki are still in charge of Earth, which I do believe they are, there's no point in them leaving. There's no way they would leave us on our own to one day come across their planet and shoot at them. They're not that stupid. So the question then is, would they care about us using nukes? Now, we obviously did use nukes in the past, as you know. So were the Anunnaki aware of us even using the nukes at that moment in time, or do they not really care what we do? If we look at history, they don't care what we do. I mean, we fought ourselves over them without even knowing that we're fighting. And I mean, we're still doing it to this day. People, different religions are fighting each other right now, and they're fighting over the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki don't even care what's happening to people. So if we look at it from that, would the Anunnaki care about the nuclear weapons? Probably not, as long as it doesn't affect them. My gut feeling would be. Would they be dealing with the orbs? Now, the orbs, there are stories of like crop circles being formed by orbs, and then UFOs very shortly after being seen above them, above the crop circles. In other words, reading whatever the crop circle says as a pictograph. So, just my gut feeling, I would say the orbs are probably working with the modern aliens that we're aware of more than the Anunnaki. That's just my gut feeling from everything that I've ever learned. But it's a good question. I can see why you asked that. It's a good number 3 in the class for that. It's a good question. You like to keep your eggs in a basket, I guess, with all these questions you're holding on to. Jazz has wrote, "Hey, Altrish, I hope you're good. Had to see you live." Oh, thank you, Jazz. Thank you very much. D Boys wrote, "Is Mercury Thoth Hermes?" Um, so Hermes is Thoth. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Thoth is Ningazida. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Mercury, which was the Roman god, is that Thoth? Off the top of my head, the reason why I'm stalling is because I can't remember. Forgive me. So I can't answer that because I haven't got my family tree in front of me. So I can't answer it. Yeah, I'm afraid I can't answer it. Sorry, I'm trying to rack my brains to see whether it was or not, but I won't lie to you and make up something. Jansen's wrote, so the Anunnaki see everything as living. Did they see energy? When I say they see things as living, they describe them as living. So, for example, when Tiamat, the planet, got smashed into by 4 smaller objects, like moon type of size, you read that Tiamat screamed out in pain, and she told her, her 11 moons to go and attack, and she gave the tablets of destiny to Kingu, which was one of her biggest or main moon. And so Kingu took the tablets of destiny and then left and ended up here, and become our moon, which Tiamat broke up, and part of it became her head. Her head became Earth, and her torso became the snake, the Gundagurg, as Norse call it, which basically is a self-eating snake. Yes, I'm the only person to work all that out. Yes, I am big-headed, but not heroic. So yes, they did see things as, or describe them as alive. Whether or not they actually saw them as alive, I doubt it. But so did they see energy? I probably would say they saw energy with equipment, because they had enough equipment to know where the ley lines are, where to put pyramids, where to put buildings with that are significant. Obviously, I know people say, "Oh, Michael Tellinger's wrong when he's talking about them being, the buildings over in Greece being like a circuit board." There's that stupid guy that pretends he debunks people. I don't know if you know his shouts. I don't like him at all. And I saw him doing a video on. I could do videos on him all day long. He's trying to debunk someone saying, "Oh, it's a circuit board," and he goes, "Look, it doesn't even look like a circuit board." Yeah, what a numpty this guy is, because I would have then said, "Yes, that's our circuit board here on Earth." And you telling me you know exactly that our circuit board's going to match an alien circuit board? Stupid idiot. And the reason why I say stupid idiot, I can't remember his name, Jason or something. Really, really annoying person. Swears a lot as well. The reason why I get frustrated with him is because he clips someone's video where it's their opinion, and they've said, "This is my opinion on something," and then he goes, "Oh, I'm going to debunk you." Swear, swear, swear. Yeah, look, this can't be true because, and then he gives his opinion. Absolutely freaking numpty. Ain't got a brain cell. And so I've done Stitch video, and he come back saying, "No," and I said, "No, you're giving an opinion. You can't debunk someone that's got an opinion with your opinion." And in the end, he left because he realised that he was a fucking stupid brat. Sorry, I hate stupid people that think they're smart. Sorry, like myself, stupid, and I think I'm smart. Sorry, yeah, I get frustrated with people that. So yes, I think they can see energy with their technology, because clearly, we can't see ley lines properly. I mean, we can use dowsing rods and things like that, but with technology, we can kind of get an idea where, I mean, look at Skinwalker Ranch, for example, and who's not watching Skinwalker Ranch recently? The new season 7, it's just come out. Episode 3 was out the other day. So if you're not up on Skinwalker Ranch. I'm not going to spoil it, but they're now doing something that I said they should have done 6 seasons ago and freaking dig down from the top. Yeah, stupid. You got to wonder whether they're doing it for the. I don't know. I know they're not doing it because obviously it costs them a fortune, but the stupidity of saying, they've got photographs of. So they could argue, oh, it's a protected site, therefore we can't dig into it. Well, they are digging into it. Okay, well, we can't dig a lot into it, but they actually went and found photographs from the 1960s. I think it was 60s, where mysterious people had dug into the actual mesa and then covered it all back up. So if that's already been done, fucking do it again. You can't be told off by the government. And first of all, I would have just done it. If it's my land, I would have dug that thing freaking right out and then covered it back over again. None of this pussyfooting around for fucking 7 years. Excuse my language. I get frustrated with stupidity. 7 years spending all this money on bringing people in with these long drill bits that go, 400 feet or 400 meters, whatever it is. And then putting equipment down. And no, just freaking, shovels and spades and a digger and just go for it. But anyway, D-Boys wrote, if so, he'd be the most worshipped throughout time. In terms of Thoth and Hermes, you could say, well, then you've got, Poseidon, which was Enki, Shiva, he was also Shiva. So you could say, he's been worshipped a lot. Then you got Zeus, which was Enlil. Then you got, so it's a hard one to say. I mean, Thoth, you could argue is probably more well known worldwide because he's also Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica. So you could say Ningazida's more well known worldwide. I guess you could probably say that. Amy Sears wrote, so I never had more than 200 views on my videos. Laugh out loud. Okay. Do you know what I did, guys? I did a test the other day because, as you know, I'm, TikTok limits me on these lives. Clearly, they do. I've got 300,000 followers nearly, and anyway, as you can see, we're stuck at 15. We was at 30 earlier, but whether or not people's bored of me, I don't know. But anyway, so I did this fake video, and I think it's on 120,000 now. I just did a fake video to see whether or not, made up a story to see whether or not people love that kind of, mystery and stuff, or whether they prefer evidence-based stuff, which is what I do. And, well, the ones, 200 views is the normal I get now. That one's 120,000 in a week. So, yes, the answer is all those people that do these Anunnaki videos that make up crap are doing it because they're getting the views. They're not doing it because, obviously, they've got evidence, because they would have 200 views otherwise, just like Amy's videos as well. It's a tricky one, isn't it, Amy? So just add something at the beginning of any of your videos about making up crap, and people will lap it all up. Scrolling down. D-Boys wrote, wouldn't orbs, like most things, be linked to electric? In Texas, methane and atmosphere electric create orbs such as Martha's lights. Sorry, TikTok's asking me to do a jigsaw puzzle right now to make sure I'm real. Wouldn't orbs be linked to electric? Well, most people, including scientists that are actually studying orbs, believe it or not, there are people out there. Everyone seems to believe they're plasma, which is probably correct. So yes. Now, whether or not they, need power source themselves, whether or not they travel along ley lines, whether or not it's hard to know, unfortunately. I need to go to the toilet, everyone. So if you wouldn't mind waiting 2 minutes, sorry, it's unusual for me, but or 1 minute. It's just I'm gonna have to go. Sorry, I didn't realise I needed it so bad. Just wait there, everybody, or run away. It's up to you. I'll be back in a sec. Sorry about that. Not often I do that. I think that's probably the second time in 4 years or something on these lives. Avatar's wrote, greetings, Godsa. Hi, Avatar. Nice of you to join. History and Coins wrote, I'm off for more sleep. Thank you very much for joining. Scrolling down. Amy C has wrote, hello, lovely. I would like to know what you think about all this Trump disclosure. I won't say the last part of your word because it starts with B and ends with ox. TikTok would love to ban me, I'm sure. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, I mean, before Spielberg's movies just come out, I haven't seen it yet. There is so much more they could show. We know there's so much more they can show. Linda Moulton Howe's even got photographs given to her by copies of photographs given to her by whistleblowers, which are still those photos would still be in the files. So why are we getting the same sort of stuff that we've already got? We back in 2012 we was given loads of stuff, and it's all lights in the sky. That's it. There's no massive saucer that they filmed. It's always the lights in the sky. There's no aliens and no autopsies, which they've got. We know they've got it. No mention of back engineered craft. No mention of anything. So why are they not showing those ones? Is it just an exercise, just to sort of get us ready, psyop maybe? But they have been dripping it, as I say, certainly since 2012. They've been drip feeding us with these kind of things to get us possibly ready. But yeah, it's frustrating because obviously we know they've got freaking, so there's pilots that have been shot down or their planes have been destroyed and they've by aliens, and the loved ones were told, it was a training exercise. That's all they ever say. It's always a training exercise. So are they really going to give us everything? Because obviously, there are people that's died because of aliens, because they've tried to attack spaceships and stuff, aliens craft. Are we really going to get everything? Because as soon as we get everything, people will be going, right, my husband died because of XYZ, an alien, and you lied to me. I want compensation. Because that seems to be the order of the day these days. So I don't think we're going to get full disclosure, not the way we need it. I never think we will get that, not while we're all here. So to answer your question, Amy, I would say they may be doing something to queue us up for, and Trump may be innocent on this, because he may have you got to remember, a lot of these people that work in the White House have been there for a long time. I mean, look at George W. Bush. He was the head of, I think, CIA or something before he became. So he knew stuff. He was advising presidents of stuff before he became a president. So he knew stuff that the presidents don't know. It's always a need to know basis. So is it possible that there's people behind the scenes making it feel like Donald Trump is doing the right thing by saying to Donald, do you know what, Donald, you should be getting these images out there, and and Donald will be like, yeah, you know what, I'll do that. I'll be the first president to do that. And so he's probably being used, in my opinion, where he doesn't even know that he's being used. And why would they do all of this? Because there's a big thing called Agenda 2030, which has got a lot more wrapped around it than what we're told. It's probably going to be 2031 now, because I think they're slightly behind. But you never know, they might ramp things up. And once, I'm praying I'm wrong, but once they do get to the point what they're trying to achieve, which is what was on Georgia Guidestones, about the depopulation down to 500 million, then after that, it'll be telling everyone about aliens. There's no point in them hiding it, because they need to do a great reset, and they want to bulldoze all the houses down, use all the new technologies. That's why they're building these cities that they're building now, which is all AI cities. I don't know if you know about them. And that's how it's all going to be down the line. But in order to do that, they will have to use the technologies that they've already got from aliens and back engineers, etc., to be using some of this technology. And so the 500 million, if they suddenly say, oh, we've got aliens, are they all going to freak out? But if you've drip feed them all the way, everything's a chess game. I've always said that it's a chess game. You put the pieces there, and people, it's like turning the gas stove up on a frog in a frying pan. If you do it suddenly, the frog will jump out. If you do it gradually, the frog will stay there. And that's, I think, what's happening with us. That's just my gut feeling. I might be wrong. But thank you for your question, Amy. Go number 3 in the class. Avatars wrote, would Cain / grain be associated with Demeter, Persephone, the dragon, Ceres, grain gods? That's an interesting question. Go number 1 in the class for that. I like that question. I personally don't think so, but I've not looked into it, so it's something that might be something I can look into. It's really interesting. Yeah, I've never thought of that. The thing is with the Greeks, again, the problem with the Greeks is the stories are like 400 years at least after the event, so a lot of it gets mixed up in the first place. And we know that our history is male-centric. We know that Cain and Abel were female, but we know that everything's male-centric. So when they said, that Cain went off and married someone, there was no one there to marry. Who's gonna be the priest? So yeah, a lot of the stories are wrong, sadly. So, but it's a very interesting question. It's something I should possibly look into. Thank you for that. Chantel's wrote, hello, hi Chantel, nice of you to join. Remember when I said we're limited to 30 people? If you're new to me, the only reason why I've got 30 people is because I used to have hundreds, and that's because I tell the truth, and I am the foremost expert. I know I'm big-headed, but just watch any of my documentaries, you'll see. Avatars wrote, sir, was there any type of abraxes being mentioned in ancient Sumerian texts? The abrax, that's a creature, isn't it? I can't remember what type of. Somehow I think that's a creature. Forgive me, I can't remember, so I can't answer that because I don't know what an abrax is. I know it's an animal of some sort, but I think it's an animal. Forgive me, I don't know. I'd need to Google that, but I'm sitting here with only one phone, and I can't leave you guys to go and look at that. So I apologise for that. Jansen's wrote, when your spirit guide appears at near death, it's very bright but soft, bright and feminine energy. Not everyone has a spirit guide turn up. There's so many stories of people when they have their near death experience that are just on their own and they just float down a hospital ward or whatever. So yeah, not everyone gets a spirit guide or a loved one turn up, from what I've heard. So, but when the spirit guide does turn up, and it's not an angel because an angel was an Anunnaki messenger, when an orb or a spirit does turn up, it could be a previous loved one or part of the soul group that turns up. Or from, as I've mentioned before, sometimes people say that they see um, a light being, sort of like a humanoid, but just light. Now, whether or not that's classed as a loved one, but the thing is, when people say that they've seen a loved one, they know what the loved one looked like. So when they say about this light being, it's an entity that they've never seen before. So it's not a loved one. So the chances are it is not. It's probably a light being that's showing itself as a human form, so it doesn't freak out the person that's just died. That's probably already freaked out because they've just died. So, but yeah, I mean, it's normally they're loving spirits, whatever it is that come to the people that do see them. I guess it's probably the best thing to do, isn't it? Because you don't want to go there angry and go, "Wait, you just died. I told you to duck." um, every time you use that saw or whatever. Yeah. Age Avatars wrote, "Do you think Inanna ever returned as a human through her unalive transformation?" Well, technically, she's, when you say human, I mean she's obviously a bipedal person. Um, so when she died, if you're referring to the descent of Inanna, she came back as herself, and there's nothing that says that she came back as something slightly different, if that's what you're referring to. D Boys wrote, "What is the Bull of Heaven in?" You've put 8, and then the Bull of Heaven. So from the Queen of Heaven created the Bull of Heaven, and the Bull of Heaven was put down here on Earth. Now, if you go with mainstream, they won't tell you the same as me. I personally think the Bull of Heaven was a Minotaur, because Enkidu, well, technically Enkidu and Gilgamesh, but Enkidu killed it. And if we go back to the story of the labyrinth, the Greek story of the Minotaur looking after a labyrinth, and if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, where they go to the cedar forest and there was this creature there, and they was trying to find something, and they come across this sort of labyrinth. It kind of makes it seem like it's one of the same, in my opinion, until I find something different. So I'm not putting 100% on that, but that's just my gut feeling on it, that it was guarding. So there was also another century thing there, which breathed fire, which is the same as what you would see in the Bible was as the cherub in the Garden of Eden. So same device that has a laser sword or a fire sword, whatever you want to call it. And that was what, because obviously the two different stories. One's the Hebrew version of an older story of the cherubim in the Garden of Eden, which was Enki's own garden with a sentry gun, and there's the same thing, sentry gun, with the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was a sentry gun, but it's described as alive because obviously, if Gilgamesh never come across this creature or machine before, they wrote it down like it was some sort of a live machine, and they defeated that as well and smashed it up. So that's what I think the Bull of Heaven is. I might be wrong on that. I can't say 100% on that. I don't have the proper evidence to say 100%. D-Boys wrote, "What are sexless beings that rescued Inanna?" Yes, $1 million question, isn't it? So there is actually two versions of that I've read. One is he gets the dirt from under his fingernails, and there's another version where he breathes life into something, but it's lifeless. Even though it's alive, it's not alive. It has no blood. And one version has these sort of make it sound like flies or drones, and another version doesn't sound like flies or drones. It sounds like something that sort of walked there. So if we sort of take between the two of them, what was it? Would he have created an AI creature of some sort? Could he have created an AI creature? Thank you, Nicole. Yes, he could have totally created an AI creature. I believe they had the ability way back, and probably smart enough not to use AI, because no one will have any jobs to do whatsoever. Thank you, Nicole. So if we take it that, because it goes there and it offers Erishkigal, who is holding Inanna. Well, Inanna and Erishkigal, they were sisters, but Erishkigal killed Inanna because it was the underworld, and that's what happens when you go to the underworld. You don't come back. And this was a place over in South Africa. And so she was supposedly hung on a meat hook. The other version doesn't say she's hung on a meat hook, so the chances are she probably wasn't hung on a meat hook. So could it have been AI creatures that Enki created to go there? The problem with that is he would have to sit there and program where Inanna was, unless she's got some sort of tag on her that says go there, and here's all the language you need to understand. I know he does sort of say to it, tell Inanna that she's not alone because she's pregnant. Da da da. So these entities, whatever they are, whether they're AI or something else, they're bloodless according to both versions. So you would then think, well, okay, if it's bloodless, is there any creatures out there that's not computerized that? So and he didn't use. Neither of the stories sort of say that he spoke through them, and so in other words, it wasn't a drone where or it might not have been a drone where he could have spoke once they got to Erishkigal and said, "Look, Erishkigal, please, let Inanna go." So I wrestle with it at the moment, because that's the only technologies, and it has to be some sort of technology. I know he says he gets dirt from under his fingers, which is basically the same as earth, which is the same as the clay, which is what the Bible and the Sumerian tablets talk about as life. The translation is life. So what did he get? Was it life, but without blood? Did he create a life? So the thing is, he could have just sent someone there, but the problem is, if he sends someone there, Erishkigal wouldn't have let them go. That's probably why he did this, because if Erishkigal was so adamant that no one leaves there. She was the goddess of the underworld, so no one leaves there. Even when Nergal, which was one of Enki's sons, went there, he slept with her for 7 days and 7 nights, which was really not even one night for them. And then he left, and she went mental and said to, and this is in tablet, not to do with Stitching, nothing to do with Columbia University. We've got these tablets, and she said to Enki, and that the elder gods, the senior gods, if you don't bring him back, basically all hell will break loose on you, and I will raise all the living dead. So where's that effect? And that's where we probably get the word all hell's going to break loose. That's thinking about it right now. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You've now heard where that would probably come from, because she was literally saying all hell will break loose. So there you go. Wow. Just solved that. That's why I'm limited to 30 people, ladies and gentlemen, instead of the hundreds I used to have. So going back to the question of what these creatures were, or entities were, I don't know. The logic says, because Inanna wouldn't let anyone leave, the logic says it was some sort of entity, non-biological, or if it was biological, it was, like maybe a cyborg, half alive and half. But I don't know. That's all we've really got on that. So it's your guess is as good as mine. D Boys wrote, I asked about the Ball of Heaven because it was sent to kill Enkidu. Yes, that's what I mentioned. Yeah, so that's why I think it's a Minotaur personally. D Boys wrote 7 that judge. They are named. You're probably referring to the Magi, I'm guessing. D Boys wrote, seems a Bull of Heaven, all that refers to cycles, seasons, etc. Well, that's what mainstream, if you, depending on who you listen to, mainstream come up with all sorts of things for the Bull of Heaven. But personally, I think it's a Minotaur. Salvatore's right. Hello there. Great to hear you. Thank you very much, Salvatore. How are you? I hope you're well. People chat to each other. D-Boys wrote, yes, their planet would have been cooler, so living underground or in colder areas makes more sense. Yeah, when they come here, if we believe the Moorhen's translations and Sitchin's, I have to add Sitchin because he, although he read the translations of the Moorhens, he also did his own readings of tablets. Not that he's translated the tablets. He said he never translated them. They're already translated. So, but he did the readings of, the translations that people had done. So, if we believe those, then when the Anunnaki came here, it was hot. And, it would be hot because obviously, they're not used to that kind of heat from the sun. I mean, people in England, when we go to another country that's got hot sun, we're not used to it. So, yeah. I can understand that. Nicole wrote, did the Anunnaki have separate laws for us and themselves, or did they abide by the same laws? No, so it's very interesting. Good question. Go number 2 in the class. I like that one. Hell no is the answer. No, they did whatever they wanted. So they didn't have. They had laws as such. Which was almost common sense laws. In other words, royalty get whatever they want first. Don't fight. If there is a fight or a dispute, then it will go in front of 7 judges, and then that will be decided that way. But it doesn't. From what I've read, it didn't end the same way that the laws that they gave us, which was pretty much death. You get killed if you did this, you get killed if you did that. So I think they certainly looked at us as, not expendable. Well, I mean, really, we were, but they looked at us as annoying in some ways. By when you read the laws, it's like, you've probably read them. Code of Hammurabi, for example, there's so many and there's hundreds. And some of them are just so simple. It's like, you should. I love this one. This is a favourite one of mine. If your wife cheats on you, and I can't remember, something like, if your wife, forgive me, I'm probably bodging it right up, but if your wife cheats on you and you're okay with it, then your wife dies, and if you're not okay with it, then the wife dies, and if you let her have the house, then you die, and it's that kind of, literally, they're just crazy. So no, the Anunnaki didn't do that, otherwise they would have probably been killing each other all the time over silly things that they scribbled over. And of course, we know they scribbled over things because we've got the tablets and we've got the humans that did their wars for them. So they certainly did squabble. And I mean, Marduk was probably the biggest case of them trying to kill one of the other Anunnakis out of rage. And it wasn't like, let's take him to court. It was just, Inanna was enraged with him and tried to kill anyone that even come close to him. So, yeah, they didn't really have laws here that they wrote down anyway, but you could tell that there was sort of common sense laws for them. Salvatore's wrote, light being that we each have inside us, do they know exactly when and how our lives will play out? Brilliant question. Go number 1 in the class for that. So if we believe now I've heard this way back when I was like 9, but if we believe this and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which say the same thing that I'd heard when I was about 9, is that you make a contract. Well, we thought it was you make a contract. It's not. The orb makes a contract before it joins with someone, and that contract is to do with whatever job it's supposed to learn. And that is almost backed up by when you have a near-death experience and you're sent back because your job hasn't been done yet and you're all banged up. There's a woman in Australia. She was in a car accident and she was all banged up and paralysed from the neck down for the rest of her life. But she had a near-death experience. She didn't know she was paralysed at that point. And they said, go back, it's not your time. And she's like, but I can see my body, it's not good. I don't want to go back. And they're saying, no, you have to go back because you haven't completed your job. And so she got zapped back into her body, as they call it, snapped back. And she was on Coast to Coast talking about it. And she's like, what can I do that's now, that I'm learning? Because she thought it was her. She didn't understand the orb side of it. She's going, what can I do to learn? What's my job? She says, all right, I can, write a book or something using dictation and da. But she says, like, is it really? She just couldn't comprehend how she had this near-death experience, and they told her go back because you haven't done your job yet. And she's thinking, I can't freaking move. What job is there left to do? And so, if you look at it from this perspective that it's an orb that's there to learn, it's now learning so much more what it's like for someone to be trapped in a body, what it's like to have pity, anger, sadness, all because of whatever the reason why she ended up in that state. So the idea is that yes, the orbs know, because you got to remember when you go to have a clairvoyant and they tell you, your loved one's there, and the loved one tells you what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future, that means your loved one is traveling forwards and backwards in time, or can see forwards and backwards in time, which we can't because they got no mass, which means they could travel forwards and backwards in time, in which case the orb, before it joins with someone, will be able to go forwards in time and see what happens to this person, or what should happen to this person. So the answer to your question is technically yes, they should know what's happening, and that's the whole point why people get sent back, because they didn't quite hit the target that they were supposed to play out at. So yes, the answer to your question is they do or should know what happens, but then there's the element of free will, because clearly why didn't they know that the woman was going to, I'm using that woman as an example, why didn't they know that woman was going to get banged up, and paralyzed? The answer is they probably did, and they probably knew that she was going to try and leave her body, and they knew that she was going to get sent back. So in which case, it played out exactly as they saw it, in which case it knew what was going to happen. So yes, if we take everything as a whole, and the fact that mediums can speak to spirits that can see forwards and backwards in time, then yes, they know when our time is up. D-Boys wrote, which primate do you think they used to make us? 100% Neanderthal. 100%. So, what institution was it? Can't remember the bloody name now. It's totally just gone out off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember it. Sorry, there's a Princeton University. So basically everyone's got Neanderthal DNA in them, regardless. I know people say, "Oh no, they haven't." There's even the ones that have the Homo sapiens, Homo erectus DNA do still have a bit of Neanderthal DNA, which in other words, their ancestors bred with Homo erectus. But everyone's got Neanderthal DNA in them, and that includes the black people. Now people say, "Oh no, African people don't have Neanderthal DNA in us." Princeton University's done 2 studies now with new equipment, and both times shows that black people from Africa do have Neanderthal DNA in them. So, and of course, when it says in the tablet Enki and Nimna, when it says nip off the clay at the top of the Abzu, Abzu is Africa. Levant, which is where they said where it was, top of Abzu, was where Neanderthal was. So when it says nip off the clay, it's basically saying take the life form, organic material. That's a translation. You can look. The word clay shouldn't have been used, but obviously people that translated those tablets didn't understand that that's what they're actually referring to, and of course probably copied the Bible that also got, the dust of the earth and all that kind of crap. When really it's just organic material. Scrolling down, D-Boys wrote, besides current new and talk, is there a drop of writing or evidence any other alien visits beside? In other words, am I aware of any other aliens coming here? I do believe Bigfoot is an alien race. The more people are looking into it now, I think they're slowly coming around to it. Some still say that they're interdimensional, but let's be honest, they're not interdimensional. They're not. They don't stand there and throw rocks and hide behind trees if they're interdimensional. They don't even come to Earth to get shot at if they're interdimensional. No, so the ones here that are stuck here from a prison ship at least 10,000 years ago, in my opinion, from everything that I've learned. The other ones still travel the cosmos with certainly with the Greys, because, as I say, there was that boy, now an adult, but during the war he saw a Bigfoot with a Grey, and this is before even the Bigfoots were even known in America properly. I mean, obviously they were known, but not in mainstream. So England didn't know about Bigfoots at all. And so he described it. So, for that, and it ended up in a newspaper. So with that all being said, Bigfoot is an alien race in my opinion. So that's one that's come here. And I do believe 100% in my heart that we've got the mummies for it, the Mexican mummy, and we've got the Nazca mummy. So we've got 2 different aliens there, that the more people that's doing the research on those mummies are saying, yeah, actually, these are probably real now. And so they're at least 8,000 to 10,000 years old themselves. And then you've got the elongated skulled people that I've concluded that the Anunnaki used aliens, with the elongated skulls to breed with, or not breed, genetically modify a normal human to create the elongated skulled human, which were more intelligent and possibly had some other psychic ability that, like mind reading, which aliens do seem to have, those type of aliens. So totally makes sense. So yes, I think there were some, but not way back, not 400. That you get silly people like Billy Carson that make up crap about. You asked him for the evidence, he's got none. That say, there was wars, between aliens, a billion years ago. Shut up, stop, please. I did a video on that, and I stitched it, and I said, okay, Billy, show me where you got this from, because he said, the Lyrians and the Syrians or something were having a fight a billion years ago over Earth. Well, show me where you got any bit of evidence, just one. Yeah, that's one. Just crazy how people just make up stuff. So at least those ones I would say were here because we kind of got enough evidence to say Bigfoot's real. We've got enough evidence to say that we've got mummies of other aliens that now being shown as real. So yes, I do think there was some, but only about 10,000 years, give or take. It could be a little bit before that because obviously the flood happened then, but 10,000 BC. But yeah, Salvatore wrote, can the Greys go back and forth in time? That's $1 million question. So I believe that the military. So back in '94, when YouTube came out, there was a video around '95 that I watched. And it was I've said this a few times. It was a guy in front of. Now this was YouTube. Really early days of YouTube. People were laughing at YouTube, thinking this ain't gonna make money because it didn't know how to make money. It was just losing money, like hemorrhaging it. And this bloke was in this front of this army building, inside a building, and there was loads of army people sitting watching him do this lecture, and he had a little projector, and he was showing slides of their TR3B with the legs down and stuff like that. The tripod legs, which back then was pretty impressive for them to talk about. Long story short, he said, and he showed a couple of pictures of various things, which I totally believe was genuine. I watched it loads of times. Didn't have the ability to download it back then. They didn't have all the software that they have now to download YouTube videos. So I regret freaking never keeping that somehow. I should have just filmed it with my video camera, but I didn't, because you kind of think that these things will stay there, but I can never find it. Anyway, one of the pictures he shows, now bearing in mind the cameras, we're looking at the back of a hall with loads of military people in front of the camera, and then a guy standing at the front of this hall with the projector screen, and he's showing this image, which is quite hard to see because obviously the camera's far back, and it's the brightness and everything of the projector and whatnot. But anyway, he's saying, look, here's the neck of a long sort of Brachiosaurus type dinosaur, and he's talking about their craft going back in time. Their craft. If we believe that, and I bloody well do, there's to set that up when YouTube's only just started, to set all that up, put the photographs in. This wasn't AI back then, 1995. To put all the people in there in uniform, to get all the photographs done, slide, you name it, to do all of that for a bit of a giggle, for what's 10 people watching it back then. No, it was real. It was real, 100% real. And they also showed a photograph from the window of inside the craft that they had, looking out at a craft that was orbiting Saturn. And he goes, look, this is one of ours because it's got the flag on it. And it was a freaking American flag on the back of this craft. So there's a photograph out of a window on this craft that they're in, looking at the back of a huge spacecraft in space with American flag. So anyway, going back to your point about if we've got time travel, if we can do that, forgetting all the Andrew Basiago people and all those kinds of people, if we've got the ability to have time travel, because obviously the technologies that we back engineered from the aliens changes our time space, which it does. That's why the UFOs, the way they travel, if you use an element 115, it drops basically the bubble around the craft, and the craft always, so it creates a hole in front of or behind or above or below the craft. So in other words, the craft's always constantly falling into this hole that's surrounded by this bubble. So it's constantly falling whatever way you want it to go. That's how it travels. So if we can manipulate, and we could say, well, that also works with time, because A, you're not bound by the gravity anymore, and B, which is what time comes from, and B, there's stories like from Penelston, I think it was Captain at the time, Captain Penelston, Sergeant Penelston, I can't remember, forgive me, Rendlesham Forest, where he said that he touched this craft, this triangular craft, an alien one, not a back engineered one, and Lieutenant Holt, who was there with him, said, literally it was only a second, but the guy that was touching it said it felt like, was like a minute or so of him touching it. So the time dilation was different for him, if we believe that. So yes, I do think they have the ability to go backwards and forwards. If we have the ability, they certainly have the ability. But then the question is, well, why do they crash their craft if they know what's going to happen in the future? That's the question. But then you could say, well, if I knew certain things in the future, like Donald Trump will run for president again somehow and become president, great, I know that. But did I know there was a car crash that happened, 4 blocks from me? No. So in other words, just because you know the future, do you know absolutely every single permutation of everything that's going to happen? So even if they did go in the future, they would have to find out that their craft had crashed. Then they'd have to go back, tell the aliens on the craft at Roswell before they get to Roswell, hey, you're going to crash. And will that interfere with the timeline anyway? Because they're now going backwards, interfering with it. So can they time travel but not interfere? That's the question, which goes back to the paradox of the butterfly effect. In other words, so if they affect something somewhere else, moving along time, will it affect the outcome here? And if that's the case, is that where we're getting Mandela effects type things from? So I do believe they have the ability to time travel. But whether or not they're allowed to interfere with anything at all, I don't know. Flamingos wrote, why don't spirits tell us what it's like to pass over, like Ouija boards, people who do readings? Because we're not supposed to even know that the orbs are with us. So I don't know if you've listened to me before, but everything leads to an entity joining with the pineal gland and then learning everything it can while it's with us and then leaving our body when we die, but our consciousness, our software is still connected with that orb and we float around and do whatever, and then eventually that orb takes back over again and goes back into the next person. So they're not really supposed to, and there's laws. So if you ask the clairvoyant to say, can you find out certain questions, the spirits say we're not allowed to tell you. Now, whether or not they're not allowed to tell them because there's they've been told not to say, or whether or not it's going to change the future or what, I don't know. But there are questions you can ask the clairvoyant to ask, and the spirit will say,
someone has sent.
The spirit will say, I cannot tell you. Now, are they bound by something, or is it because they don't know?
Someone.
So, that's why I think it's difficult for them to say what it's like to pass over, because when you say pass over, dead people do explain what happens when they die if they're still around, but they don't tell us what happens if they go to the light, because they're gone then. They're just a memory now in that orb. But people do say what happened. They explain, that they were murdered or whatever happens, and they say that my loved one was here and they're here now with me and so on. So they do talk about that side of it, but they never talk about what happens if because obviously they're not around anymore because they crossed over to the light. So that's what clairvoyants even say. So when you try and talk to someone and they're not around, you'll get another spirit jump in and say, sorry, that person you're after's crossed over. But they're already dead. How can they cross over? But they do. They cross over a second time, and that's when the orb takes control and goes back round to some other person or baby. Scrolling down, D-Boys wrote, did any of the pure Anunnaki have twins? Inanna and Utu were twins. They ended up being the Freya and Freya of the Norse mythology. I'm the only one who worked it out. Yay me, genius. Go watch my amazing documentary on that if you're interested in who the Norse people were. But yes, Utu and Inanna were twins. Boy and girl, whether or not, obviously, technically, is that classed as twins? Not identical, but they were twins. Amy C's wrote, with results that shocked me, laugh out loud. That's finishing off a sentence with someone that you're chatting to. Salvatore wrote, do you think the Anunnaki are still working with the Greys for any purposes? I would imagine so, yeah, wouldn't you? I know you're very clever and everything, and so I would say your thoughts are as good as mine on that. I would say that, yeah, they'd be stupid if they didn't, because the Greys are clearly far more technologically advanced than the than the Anunnaki. So it would be stupid for them to just say, oh, hi, bye. I'm sure they would be all over that. And yeah, that's just my opinion. We would, and we're from the Anunnaki, so if we would try and get as much tech from another alien that's smarter than us and got more tech than us, if we're doing that, because they're the same as us, they've got greed and everything else, they would probably have been doing that themselves, in my opinion. D-Boys wrote, Invaders, this is for those that don't know, the Indian Invaders texts, seems there was a time first man used monkey to build bridges. I would need to go back and read that. I'm at the moment. I am going to go through the whole of Indian, texts, etc. At the moment, just started the Egyptian one. So the first video to drop on the Egyptian gods is who was Ra as an Anunnaki. Then I've got Sobek and all those others. Their videos that's going to drop, and so I'll be going through the whole of the Egypt people because I've done the main ones, I'd say, of Greek. And so I'm doing the Egyptian, then I'll go to the Indian stuff. I'm deliberately leaving that till last because there's a lot of vague stuff in there which is really difficult to learn. So yes, I can't answer or comment on that one, I'm afraid, because I need to go back and reread everything again and do it, get it all in my head properly. So I apologise for not answering that one. Keith has wrote, Hebrew alphabet is the software script for the computer we're in. It's much older than Jews. Hebrew alphabet is the software script for the computer we're in. So the Hebrew writing is actually very, very new in comparison to the hundreds of other languages that came before it. So if you could let me know what you mean by that. Hebrew is just one of many languages that's been around. So when you say the Hebrew alphabet, I'm guessing that's because you associate that with the Bible. Therefore, I'm guessing. Forgive me if I'm wrong. So if you could explain that, I'd be very interested to know where you're going with that. Avatar's right. Do you think Marduk and his crew are the fallen angels? No, I've done a video called "The Watchers, Fallen Angels Solved." It were their children. It was not Marduk's particular children, but the children of gods, the children of the Dingir. 200 of them came down from Lachmu, which was Mars, and stole human women. So it wasn't Marduk. He was in charge of them. At that point, he was in charge of them, but no, he wasn't. Sorry, no, he wasn't at that point. Anzu was in charge of them, I think. I'd need to double check everything on that. But either way, it was the young sons. I mean, even the Bible says it, the sons of God. So it was. But I have done a video on that called Watchers, Fallen Angels Solved, and I go through all of it, every single drop of evidence I can find, and it is, there's no doubts whatsoever that it is. Salvatore's right. Any record of the Greys visiting Nibiru at any point in time? If so, did they share any info? It's a fair question. I guess you're asking, has anyone abductee or anything ever heard of a Grey in any shape or form talking about Nibiru? I have heard of an abductee being taken to another galaxy somewhere and looking down on a planet, and then the telepathically Greys are telling them that these are an emerging species that's eventually going to end up with space travel, etc. And they're behind you, meaning they're less evolved than we are. But I've never heard anyone talking about Nibiru from the Greys. Obviously, they must be aware of it. If we're aware of it, if mainstream say that there's a planet out there, which they do, and I know other people saying, well, no, it's not. The amount of establishments that say there's an object out there that's 4 to 10 times the size of Earth that's having an effect on celestial objects, the amount of them is too many for them. So either, okay, let's just assume one of them says that. Yeah, not all of them. Let's just assume one institution says there's an object out there that has this huge effect on these. So we could say they're wrong. We could say, well, your data's wrong. But when we've got loads of these establishments saying there's definitely something out there that's causing these anomalies, and then the people that don't want us to know say, oh, well, there's no such thing as a planet. So which is it? No such thing as a planet out there, or all of these institutions and their equipment is wrong? Which one is it? I'd go with all of the establishments that say that there's something out there. So yeah, if we're aware of it, and obviously we've got tablets talking about it as well, then Greys would have seen it obviously as well. So yeah, they probably would be dealing with them. D-Boys wrote, last chat I mentioned fallen angels buried under Euphrates, weren't they buried alive? Going off text. No, so one of the at least one of the craft in orbit. So there was 7 that I'm aware of because of the Book of Enoch. One of the Anunnaki's craft in orbit was used as a prison for some of the Ajiji, which were the younger gods, the Watchers, the fallen angels, whatever you want to call them. So when some of those were captured, they were put in prison ships. In a ship that had a prison in there. Now, whether or not that was designed as a prison, or whether or not they just said, right, we're going to take you up and leave you on the ship somewhere, and I don't know, but they were there as prisoners. From memory, I don't know if they killed any of them. From memory, forgive me if I can't remember if they killed any of the Jijis. Probably not, unless there was a battle and people died accidentally. The Euphrates was the only mention I've read of the Euphrates being where someone was buried. Thank you, Amy C. Bless you for the bagel. You have one yourself. You can knock yourself out. Go and have a bagel. The only Euphrates is the Gilgamesh, where he's buried under the Euphrates, where they parted the water again and buried him in a tomb under the Euphrates. So I've never heard of any of the Jiji being buried under there. It's not saying that there isn't, but I don't recall it off the top of my head ever coming across that. Scrolling down, we are limited to 30 people. Oh, what a shame, we're at 30 people. Didn't I say we're limited? I used to have hundreds of people. Hundreds. Amy C's wrote, laugh out loud, 120,000. Wow, you need to make yours funny. Taking the P out of fake ones is a good way to educate and profit, I'm guessing. Yeah, 120,000 or something it's on now, that fake video that I done just to see whether or not. And right at the bottom of the last second, there's if you pause it right at the last second, look at the very bottom right hand side, and it says I made this to see whether or not this gets more shares than any of my other videos, because I have basically and I made it fake just to see. And yeah, so you can make up any old crap you want, people love it. And you could say, oh well, people trust me, so therefore if I'm doing a video, but why aren't they trusting me on the other ones where I give the evidence? So people love a story that's a bit fanatical, as opposed to, hey, I've solved where hell was. Yeah, who cares? Yeah, but you put the amount of people that say, oh, I'm worried about dying and going to hell, and you've solved it. Yeah, who cares? But if I did a video saying, oh, there's a demon that's come out of the ground and is going to bite your bum, oh, that will get 120,000 shares straight away. Mental, isn't it? It's crazy. D-Boys wrote, where did you find the best study material on this besides Oxford? Oh God, all over the place. On my Patreon page, I do have a under the info section category, I do have a post where I listed loads of links to loads and loads of research papers and stuff, and documents and translations, etc. that I use. I can't, Clark. Sorry, I'm using my phone again. Sorry, play on your tablet. No, I can't, Clark. Sorry. this phone turns off at 8 o'clock, and so he's trying to get me to turn it on. Agents wrote he's using the throne. That was wow, am I that far back? What for? Tiny bit. Amy says, right, hope he washes his hands. I did. I hope, and I was thinking as I was washing, I was thinking, hope you guys hear the tap because you guys will be thinking I'm dirty. Daharamas wrote, definitely washed his hands. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I should have took the phone in with me and no, Amy C's wrote, Spielberg came out of retirement to do that film Weird, and why people need those arses to believe. No, you can't have a chocolate bar, Clark. No, I bought them today. No, stop. Otherwise you won't. You'll have to go on Friday. Oh, stop it. Sorry, everybody. Bye, darling. I didn't know Spielberg was retired. I didn't hear that. That's sad. Bye, Clark. My film, just in case you're all interested. So I'm doing a movie, but it's AI. I have directed many movies before in the past. The film that I'm doing now is AI. I wanted to see whether or not I could. I was actually one of the first. Well, I was the first person to do a low budget movie in 3D. It's a long story. Anyway, so yeah, the new film is called Anunnaki Search for Gold. It's going to be 6 movies long instead of 4. I'm 20 minutes away from finishing, but then I have to go through and dub and all that kind of stuff. But 20 minutes away from finishing the film, and I'll be honest, I think thank you, Amy C. Once people see it and see, unfortunately, it is AI. I wish it wasn't, but it is. I wanted to see whether I could do one. Once people see that, film's going to just change. Movies, Hollywood's going to be gone because it's as good as any film. Because obviously, as a filmmaker, I know what I'm doing, and as someone that's quite technical, I know what I'm doing as well. So it's as good as any movie. You won't know the difference. I mean, I've showed clips to people, and they're like, they start watching and they forget within 10 seconds that it's AI because of the way I've done it and everything else, and they're watching these sequences, some action, some normal chatting, but because of the way I cut it and everything else all properly, they forget, and they're just like, wow, that's going to change the industry. But I'm also hoping, not that I want to change the industry, it's not, because I was part of the industry, but what I'm hoping is you guys will watch it, enjoy the hell out of it, because I'm going to put it free of charge, and share the hell out of it, because it will have a couple of adverts in it. Sorry, I know I'm doing it free of charge. It's costing me actually some money to make, but I'm just going to put 2 adverts throughout the whole film, just talking about our true history. Just because obviously, if people are watching it and engaged in the actual content of the Anunnaki, then I want them to kind of learn a little bit more about it, hopefully. That's all. So anyway, yes, so that will be out still scheduled for before Christmas. I know it's June and you're thinking, well, that's like another 6 months, and he's only got 20 minutes left to do. That 20 minutes will probably take me another month to do all, and then I have to go back over and tweak some of the earlier stuff that I've learned how to do better stuff now, because at the beginning of the film I was using many different bits of software, and now I've narrowed it right down. So if anyone's interested in learning how I'm making an AI movie, what software, etc., just asked. D-Boys wrote, Wounds Cross staff seems like a turning fork for sound tech. I'm guessing that's wands. Yeah, so the Anunnaki, on their wands and staffs and scepters, they had crystals. Not saying every single device that they used crystals, but those ones certainly did, which I think is their own crystal. I don't think it's our crystal. Cotswolds has joined and wrote, evening all, evening Cotswolds. Amy C's wrote, they kill any good ones. Presidents. Yeah. And then Amy C's wrote, I 100% agree with that. As when I was talking about Trump, I guess. Avatars wrote, do the ancient Sumerian tablets mention 1014 other humanoid realms that exist? Not that I've read, but the problem we have is the translators. So I can't get my hands on those tablets. Neither could Zachariah Sitchin. A lot of these tablets now are, in museums, etc. Some of them are even on show. So we have to go by the people that translated them when they first grabbed hold of them. And as I've shown, there are translators that have said where Nibiru should have been, in other words, the word Nibiru or planet, they said heaven. So Adapa goes to heaven and sits and has a chat with King Anu. But we know that that was on Nibiru, because at the end of the tablet it says send him back to his earth. So the problem we've got is the translators. Some of them, nearly 200 years ago, had a reference, and it's the same as the Bible. People that translate that have their own frame of reference, and unfortunately, they go by what they think should be there if they can't understand it. And again, that's why we got nip off the clay. Shouldn't be clay. It should be another word. But obviously, the translators didn't understand. And 200 years ago, talking about genetically creating a new species, no, they probably wouldn't have no idea about that. Now, we could say, yeah, that's doable. 200 years ago, it would have been burnt at the stake for bloody writing down that that they're writing, they're translating tablets from thousands of years ago talking about genetic modification. So they probably, in some ways, not just their own biases, but some ways they probably were worried what they would write. So going back to your point about other realms or things like that, there is possibility that they wrote about it, and we're getting just a translation that makes it sound like it's our realm. So I can't say no, because I know the translators. Like the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's like, I think 3 or 4 translations of it. So in other words, people that's managed to get their hands on it have translated it themselves, and they're different. They're not all. Some of them are widely different. So how can you have the same text that they all translated, but have almost totally different story in it? And you think, well, how does that work? How can they translate it that different? But they do, because of their own, thoughts and biases. And again, some of the wording for Sumerian words, for example, a lot of them mean 6 different things. So one word can mean 6 different things. So you've got a choice of 6 different things, at least, of whatever you want to put in that place where you think. And the Sumerian words, you have to read the whole sentence before you actually understand what the beginning means. That's the way that Sumerian's written. So if I said to you, oh, I'm going to go stand over there and watch TV, you'll know that I'm going to stand and watch TV. Sumerian, it'll be TV's on, and then I'll go and stand over there, even though you actually are standing there watching the TV. It's backwards. And so to understand, that was probably a bad example, but that's how it kind of works. So to understand something, you have to read the whole context, and then you go, that's what they were talking about at the end of it. It's really bizarre. So it's totally possible that they cock up. And yes, I am limited to 30 people, and if anyone says any different, then all you have to do is look how many people we've got, and it says 30, which is exactly why. Darwin's wrote, please tell us about the AI cities. There's a few of them now that they've done. So there's one they tried retrospectively fitting a city to try and make it AI. I don't know how far they've got with that. Forgive me. I think one of them's in America, at least, that I'm aware of. And then they built this new city, brand new city, again in America. I think it's off the coast somewhere. I remember seeing the oceans fairly near it in a map that they were showing where it is. You can probably look it up yourself. And it was basically designed as a whole city, brand new, with, smart. I think they called it a smart city. They didn't call it an AI. This is going back a few years, but we know they've had the AI tech for a lot longer than they're lying. Than this is saying to us because they're lying to us. So that AI, what we've got now, they've had for a long time. So yeah, there's these settings. Forgive me, it's only something that I stumbled on years and years ago, and I was a bit interested in it, but I've never followed it up. So, but you could probably have a look, and I think it was called Smart Cities, and there's probably more than one or two now that they've done. And the idea is that you'll be chipped, which is something that they plan on doing to us once they do their depopulation. Anyone that's left is chipped, and their children's chipped, etc. And so AI knows exactly who you are, where you are, even though it's got cameras and everything else. The chip basically solidifies that there's no errors. And you can basically open doors, pay with everything with just this chip in some part of your body. I'm guessing the hand. I might be wrong, but yeah. So they say it's for convenience, but it's. I would rather see. We're going to end up, like bloody. I keep using that as an example, but it's exactly how we're going to go. Wally, where they're all sitting on these benches, chairs, with a screen in front of them, and they're fat, and they've got AI robots doing everything for them. And we're going to end up like that. Dear. Amy C's wrote, what makes me laugh about AI is it's taking over content online so soon it will be learning from AI. Yeah. I mean, they've got these things called agents where you can now. Yeah, it's scary. We're going to all end up with no jobs, which is exactly what their plan is. That's part of the Great Reset. Do you think they want us earning our own money? We'll be beholden to the state. The state will be paying for everything. That's how it works. That's how it's planned. What do you think? Avatars wrote. What do you think of the dead internet theory? Could depopulation already have started? I've never heard of the dead internet theory. I apologise for that. I don't know. I've never heard that. Sorry. Amy C's wrote, which means powers that will control all information and education. Absolutely, yeah. And then Amy's wrote, perfect for the reset, which is exactly what they're doing. Yeah. I mean, the first thing here is they're trying to get age verification for children on devices, but it's not for It's not for the children. I love the way they do it for children. Because in order for you to know whether you're a child, the adults have to basically have a digital ID to prove that they're not the children. So it's the children save our children, but it's designed. They don't care about the children. You can guarantee they don't care about the children, but it's the older people that they need to get the ID for, because once the children grow up, they're going to have the same problem and get ID anyway. So it's all to do with exactly that. Avatars wrote, do you think Marduk does the reset or harvest to attain human life force energy at a time of rapture? Well, so the Ragnarok was the cataclysm that ended up being the Great Flood. So if we say that the rapture is the same event, then that's not going to probably happen for another, way past our lifetime. If we say that the rapture is the same event, so I don't think they would have took the life force. I mean, they have, they limited us to 120 years, so they clearly know technologies to rejuvenate themselves with the plant, and with obviously knowing that they capped us at 120, then they can probably extend their life. Now there is a version from I think it's Zachariah Sitchin. I don't think it's in the Moorhens, where Zachariah Sitchin says that after the Great Flood, when the Anunnaki were old, they said if they come back to Nibiru, they can de-age them. In other words, where they've got prematurely older here, they can fix that. Is that possible? Yeah, I mean, who knows? So did they go back, get fixed, and come back again? I don't know. So it's a good question, but I don't know if he would have done the life force. I don't think that nothing's. I've never read anything about them doing that. The only thing comes close is when they slain one of their own to create the very first human, but that was its spirit. That was its obviously the orb. That was its ghost. I think was the translation. Teo as wrote Anunnaki Elohim were not the first last on Earth. Now you follow me. When you say Anunnaki Elohim, so the Anunnaki's race name was Dingir, which translates to gods, which ends up being Elohim anyway. When you say they were not the first or last on Earth, now I don't know whether you've only just started following me. The problem is I am the foremost expert, and I won't lie. So, could you show me evidence? Because everything I do, you probably know that I go by evidence. Could you show me evidence that there was another civilization prior to the Anunnaki? Now, I'm going to help you out because you follow me. You won't be able to do. Trust me, I've been doing this nearly 50 years. I debunk everyone else. I'm not doing this as a big ego thing. I'm just pointing out you will never be able to show me any evidence that someone was here prior to 445,000 years ago in terms of, technology or an alien race. I know you're going to hate me for that. You're going to be going, but you won't have it. You won't. So I'm just helping you out. So the Anunnaki were the first intelligent species. There were obviously hominids here and dinosaurs even before that, and so on and so on, and animals, but not an alien race that we're aware of, because obviously we have zero evidence of it. Now, I know you probably try and say, well, Atlantis, well, I've already proved where Atlantis was. Have you? Yes, I have. Feel free to watch my video on TikTok, which shows where Atlantis was. Then you could say, well, what about Andromedans and Archons and Scooby-Doo and Superman? And I'll say, well, show me the evidence. And you'll go, but I don't have any. I listened to Billy Carson. And then I'll say, well, that's your second problem right there. Bless. Sorry. Teo, the same person as wrote, gods, goddesses are not special almighty. I didn't say they were. No, they were basically, it was a race called Dingir, which are no different from us. They were taller than us, and they created us in their image. And we've got tablets of that shouldn't be written back in those thousands of years ago, talking about genetic modification, but they do, and that's because the Anunnaki, or should I say Dingir, which translates to gods. So unfortunately, Teo, where you've wrote gods and goddesses are not special almighty, you've assumed that that's what I was probably saying. So I'm just pointing out that's not what I say. There is no, as far as I'm aware, there is no special almighty. Andy has wrote, from my understanding, from our 3D point of view, they are orb looking. I'm not sure who they are. Orbs are orbs. Anunnaki look like us, but are taller. We've got tens of thousands of carvings of the Anunnaki, so we kind of know what they look like. And they're not orbs, if that's what you're referring to. Sorry, I don't know what that was referring to, but they're not. Anunnaki are not orbs. Cotswolds wrote, do you think the stories of the massive UFO with something built on top of it because it's so big are true? I heard back in the 80s, I heard that there was a UFO under Antarctica's ice that was I heard it was city-sized, and it was so big they couldn't move it. It was just, so they had to basically get a treaty and make sure no one goes there. That's what I heard. Roll on 3 years ago, I heard someone, I can't remember who it was, whistleblower or someone, saying that there's a UFO. They called it, I think, forgive me, it's not city-sized, but they said something like town-sized. And I was like, wow, that's the second time I've ever heard that. One in the 80s, because I used to research. If you know me, I researched since I was 6. And now finally someone fairly recent saying the same thing, or a different wording, not city, but absolutely massive. I can't remember if it was Linda Moulton Howe or Linda Moulton Howe had someone that was saying it, but so that's two people. All right. I mean, you could argue, well, it's just a story that's made up over the years, but you also then have to think, well, hang on a minute, is it a city-sized UFO that's under the ice? Was there ice? We've got maps that show that there wasn't ice there. We've got, we know that there was a size of America that ice slid off, broke into the ocean, caused a tsunami, which caused a great flood. We know that Oxford University said it, the tablets say it, and Admiral Byrd says it. So, is it possible that there was Anunnaki there? The Anunnaki talked about Antarctica as the White Lands, so we know that they knew what Antarctica was. So is it possible that they had a city-sized ship? Well, we know their ships were big up in orbit because Enoch goes up there, Ezekiel goes up there as well. So both a couple of people at least go up and into one of their ships, which is big, obviously. And Enoch sees smaller ships leave the bigger ship and go off towards the stars, roughly paraphrasing the same. That's what he says. So could that ship in Antarctica be, if there is one, be the Anunnakis, and just got covered over by snow, and that's where the Anunnakis are living? Could they have, amalgamated some of their craft, or was it that big that they had it there and just decided that, hey, we're going to live in Antarctica, let's land our craft there, and it got covered over in ice, because after a while in Antarctica it might get covered over in ice. It's a hard one to say. Obviously, there is now with Antarctica, obviously we know that there's core samples that's been pulled out from some of the labs that are there, where they're finding new microbes, etc., they've never found anywhere else. So in other words, Antarctica is an actual land. It's not just ice. It's underneath the ice is proper land, and it's huge. And so if you look at America and see all the diverse things that's in America, you've got deserts, you've got swampland, you've got normal places with just normal grass, etc. And then you look at all the animals in America and all the different locations. You've got vultures in one place, you've got certain other birds in other places, etc. Then you think, well, hang on a minute, Antarctica's that size. What animals could they have had? In other words, evolutional animals that are not anywhere else on this planet. And what minerals are there? What gold? What is there helium-3 there? Is the military are after, etc. So for all of those reasons, it's enough to basically stop people from going to the Antarctica, because if I was the military, I would probably do the same. So whether or not that craft is there, now there's supposedly another one in Greenland that's also, I think it's Greenland, Greenland, that's also supposedly covered over. Is that the case? Well, Scandinavian sort of country did have the Norse gods, was one of their craft there, and it just didn't start again. The fan belt went, or start a motor, or they lost their keys. Is it possible that a craft, were they using craft as their bases after a while, instead of using the lapis lazuli buildings that they had once, about 1,000 years ago, when they sort of decided that's enough now, we're not dealing with humans anymore? Did they think, oh, let's just bring down our craft in places that no one's going to go to and live on Earth in our crafts, our massive crafts, which is totally possible. And, or did they deliberately cover over their craft with ice so that no one will find it? Because apparently the story goes for the one in Antarctica, it was an expedition that their equipment went funny, and they couldn't work out why it was going funny, and it turns out that they eventually worked out that it was something under the ice, and that's when they dug down and saw that it was a massive spaceship, and they managed to find a door and managed to go in, and da. So your guess is as good as mine on that. There's a lot of stories out there, and if it's not the Anunnaki's craft, how long has it been there, and who put it there, and why? It doesn't seem to be. No one's ever said it's upside down, or thank you, Kerry, or crashed. I mean, it may have crashed. Obviously, it's that big, you may not realise it's crashed. But yeah, I just don't have enough information at the moment. Teo has wrote, I don't want to love anyone else, anything else anymore. And then wrote, understand, grasp, comprehend. And then Teo then also wrote, and leave 3D Earth, Archonic world. Not quite sure when you say, I don't want to love anymore, sorry, I don't want to love anyone else. You still love me, don't you, Teo? I don't know who Teo is. I just felt like saying that. Avatar's wrote, so Inanna would be referred to as second coming, perhaps. I wouldn't have said so. No, she would have been the first coming of anything. No, Inanna. I see where you're going with it, but I don't think so. She's so up there. I mean, literally, almost, you could argue second in command, really. Even when Marduk was, not saying that she was working with Marduk, but I'm saying, she had Sargon the Great, then she had Sargon the Second working for her, and she was a force to be reckoned with. So, I mean, I could see why you say second coming, but I'd probably need to look into the whole of the first coming and the whole of the second coming to try and see whether or not there is a connection with her. I've not done that before, so I can't say yes or no. Thank you, Amy C. Teo's wrote, Anunnaki Elohim were not the first on Earth. Please show the evidence. I'm praying one of the moderators has asked you. Teo's wrote, all is factuality. And then wrote, all is one. Teo's wrote, all of existence is cosmic nature, factuality is all. Really, without sounding rude, this is going to sound rude, what you're saying really is just things like, with great power comes great responsibility. It's kind of like saying something because it sounds cool, therefore it's true. So let me read out what you said again so that people understand with with great power comes great responsibility. Therefore I am, to be or not to be. So Teo wrote, all of existence is cosmic nature, factuality is all. Do you see what I mean? It's just like a load of mumbo jumbo. Sorry, I don't mean to sound rude, but it is. Sorry. Even Avatar has said to Teo, stop spamming. And Teo wrote a mystery. Amy Sees wrote, send the guy a bagel gift. People, he does all this for free. Help complete his small goal. Oh, thank you. Oh, I see. There's a bagel up there. It says 13 and 17. See, I should really, all this research that I do and limited to 30 people because I'm amazing. I should really learn all about this TikTok crap, but they have limited me now, so it's difficult to even want to do a TikTok live. Thank you, Amy C. Bless you. Yes, I mean, I do sell books, but I make nothing on it. I think I've made £18 on my new Bible rewritten book, so I'm not exactly going to be, retiring on it. That's not because I'm not selling many of them. It's because I charge the lowest I can possibly charge, because I just want the information out there, and that's the best way to do it. Because I have sent PDFs to people before where I've written things, and they say, "Oh, I'd rather have a book," and so that's why I'm sort of doing the books, not because I want to make money. Because trust me, sitting doing any of these books for months and months and months and months, I could do something else for £18. I really could. So, but yeah. So thank you, Amy. I'm just saying all that because Amy's wrote here that I'm doing this for free. Yeah, I am. I do enjoy it, but yeah, it's I could have been watching Clarkson's Farm episode or doing something else instead. So I do this because I kind of want the information out there, really, but. Tails wrote, I chat since 1996 online, the KG. Cool. Teo's wrote "Enjoy Yourself." I'm guessing Teo's done a runner. It's sad, isn't it, when you get people that come on, say stuff without backing it up. Like, the Anunnaki weren't the first. He wrote that twice. Well, then say where it is. Don't just say it twice. Say once, the Anunnaki weren't the first, and then the second time he should have said, right, the evidence is X, Y, Z, but they don't. You know why? Because they lie. Let's be honest, they lie. They make up stuff. They know they don't have the evidence. That's the difference between me and them. That's why I'm limited to 30 people instead of the hundreds I used to have. Amy Sees wrote, yeah, well done. I'm not sure whatever that was for, but whoever it was for, well done. Scrolling down. Avatar wrote, do you think Anunnaki use AI technology and maybe Inanna had a Neuralink type implant? I'd like to think they're smart enough that they came and used AI and decided not to use it anymore, because we're at that stage where we're using it and we're going to end up with nothing. We're going to, Elon's talking about, within a certain amount of years, very few years, there's going to be a robot nearly in every house. There was a video of a robot kicking a little kid the other day while it was doing this routine dancing, and it didn't understand that the kid was in its way, and it just kicked him right in the chest. And it carried on dancing. So, do we really want that? Am I that lazy? Yeah, all right. When remote controls came out, I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, so I didn't have to get up to change the channel. I loved it. Okay, that is progress. But am I that lazy to say, okay, make me a cup of tea, okay, tidy the house, okay? How lazy are we going to get for AI? And I'm hoping the Anunnaki worked all that out a long time ago. So I can't answer it because they never mention anything. The closest is what I said earlier about the bloodless, whatever it was that went and helped Inanna. Now, would they have had Neuralinks? Would they have had technology built into them? I can't say no. They didn't. I've not read anything that gave that impression. But again, the translators probably 200 years ago wouldn't have even understood what a Neuralink is. So it's totally possible that they may have translated something and just said, "Oh, they had a brain, fart or something," instead of a Neuralink, because they probably didn't understand it. So it's possible. I'd like to think they're smart enough to get past all of that now. I mean, we're not going to be. We're going to be beholden, but yeah, it's a good question. Go number 3 in the class for that, Avatar. It's a good question. Daramas wrote, you think it's possible to trace into your research? You think it's possible to trace into your research? I'm not sure what that question is referring to. When you say trace into my research, obviously on my videos I kind of explain where things are, etc., so that people either believe me or go and do their own research. So when you say your research, I'm guessing you mean mine specifically. Like I say, I have on my Patreon page, I have a section where it's info, and on one of those it gives a list of loads of links of places that I get my information from. So I'm not hiding it. I mean, you could just type it in yourself and look, but the ones that I've put there are ones that I rate because, as you know, there's people out there that translate badly. There's people out there that make up stuff. There's people that don't even translate them and make up stuff. So the ones that I have rated, worthy, I've put on that page there. Cotswolds wrote, did you look into Seraphim, maybe highest ranking Anunnaki gods? Why they're called burning ones? Believe it or not, I didn't. I looked into, I think you asked me about Sophia at the same time, and so I looked into Sophia, which I believe, if you're interested, if anyone wants to know who Sophia is, who wants to know? I don't think the video's dropped yet, actually, so you're going to find out right now before everyone else on this planet. Yes, you learn stuff here before anyone else on this planet. Sophia was Inanna. So I don't know if that video's dropped yet. But when it does, you'll see it's an Ana. So Seraphim, no, I haven't. I should have done. Can you remind me in the background again? Sorry, I did one of the two that I think you asked me for. Someone asked me at the same time, so I apologise. Dioramas wrote trance instead of trace. That's why I got confused on the. Is it possible to trance into research? Ah, that makes more sense now. Um, uh, that's a really interesting question. Um, okay, so because I've looked into out of body and because I've looked into DMT and all those kind of things, is it possible to trance? I would say yes, but the results probably might not be what you expect, because everything that I've learned in terms of out of body experiences um, seems to be very personalized to that person. So whatever they are, they're somewhere to do with them. Um, so I can't imagine them. I've heard people saying, "Oh, they was there when they watched the pyramids being built by Egyptians." Yeah, no, they weren't, because there's a one in Cambodia. So what, the Egyptians went over there and built that one too? There's 1,000 pyramids worldwide at least. There was some woman on freaking TikTok did a video and she said, I stitched it. She said there's over 100,000 pyramids. I was like, okay, show me. And then she goes, oh, isn't there? And I was like, no, stop fucking making up crap. Everyone lies. 100,000, idiot. The best count is over 1,000. So I said, show me the other 999,000 pyramids, please. Fucking idiots. So this is why I'm limited to 30 people, because I tell the truth. I keep saying that because there's only 30 people, and that's because we are limited to 30 people. So the answer to your question is, I don't think so, because if people could do that, then they could probably look for information that no one else has ever solved, like where hell was, what heaven was, and who the god of the underworld was. And in other words, they would sort of, if they had the ability to research, meaning look up something. Obviously, if you're having an out of body experience, you probably wouldn't use the internet, so you'd probably go to the place that you're actually researching. And as far as I'm aware, no one solved anything by having a trance, that's been proven. Just from my experience. But it's an interesting question. Go number 3 on the class. That Lucky's wrote, new here. Hi all. Hi Lucky. Nice of you to join. Welcome. Just a little bit about me. I've been doing this for over 40 years, probably a little bit more than that now. And I've written books, been on radio shows, and I've solved things that no one else has solved, and I debunk everyone else. Doesn't mean I'm big-headed. Yes, it does. It just means I won't lie to you. So that's all you'll ever get from me, is the truth. Except for that one video where I did do as a test to see whether or not people may like the made-up crap, and my God, they did. Daharamas wrote, Urethro Dilemma. I've not heard of that, so I can't answer or mention that. Sorry. Avatars wrote, they were expandable unless they were beautiful. Had daddy fetish, Enki loved them. I'm not sure if I was talking about Cain and Abel at this point earlier on, because I'm slightly behind. Avatars wrote, sorry, my bad, I got carried away. No worries at all. Scrolling down, Avatars wrote, so you think Soul Orb has embodied in hundreds of bodies at once to compete as a team? It's Earth mission. No, I think the way I see the orbs is, it's like a drop of water, as best analogy I can give. Drop of water, you can split that drop into 6 different drops, but it all comes from the one drop. And then you can put that 6 smaller drops into people, and then at the end, when they all die, the drops can go back and form into one, if it wants to. And that's what your soul groups are, the 6, or however many. other orbs that has joined with people that you're going to be interacting with throughout your life, or maybe shortly throughout your life. Doesn't have to be the whole life. So one time it could be your mum, next time another one could be your dad, next one time you could be the mum or the orb, that orb becomes the mum, and so on and so on. So I don't think there's thousands of them living one life at this moment in time, but I do think that they are a collective as a soul group from everything that I've ever read. I have got documentaries. If you're new to me, I've got thousands of content on my website with evidence, and obviously on these lives I can't. Thank you, Amy C. On these lives I can't show the evidence. I can tell you where it is, but I can't show it. But on documentaries, you have it all. Everything that I can ever find on things. Amy C's wrote makes most sense to me. Not sure what that was referring to, so I apologise for that. Scrolling down, people chatting to each other. UFO Annie, Amy C has wrote, UFO Annie came and went, so want to speak to that lady. Yeah, she's very good. If anyone sees UFO Annie, she's very, very good at what she does. Nicole's wrote, do you think an orb can turn into negative energy after experiencing enough bad experiences? We see negative energy. I mean, energy is energy. Now, from what I've heard from clairvoyants and mediums, etc., is there's sort of lower frequency and a higher frequency. So I'm guessing you're saying, can it turn into a lower frequency? So a lower frequency is like a murderer or bad people that have bad intentions. And so when they die, they stick with the people with the lower frequencies, and the good people, like me and everyone that's listening, will be higher frequencies and would end up floating around with each other. Yes, you can get my autograph when we're all floating around with each other. I was going to be rude there, but anyway, let's change the subject. So could they, after a while being connected? I don't know. It's a clever question. The problem is obviously we don't know that much about plasma. Plasma's fairly new to us, and we are still learning stuff about plasma every day. I mean, we use plasma for blowtorches now. We use plasma for TVs. We use plasma. Well, plasma's in blood. So we're learning a lot about plasma. And so if the orb is a plasma-based life form, can it be influenced by enough of something else over time, such as negative emotions, etc.? So excellent questions. So I've got number 2 in the class, but I can't answer it because we're still learning about plasma now. We don't know everything. But it's a really good question. Scrolling down, Amy C's first time I saw orbs was scared. The nurse I was working with was like, yeah, like making a cup of tea. In other words, she's seen loads of them. Wow. I haven't seen an orb. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, I bet that was interesting. Scrolling down. Scrolling down, sorry. You don't have to, whoever's doing the hearts, you don't have to. We're stuck at 30 people. It will make no difference whatsoever other than your thumb having a rest. So I appreciate the fact that you're doing that, but as you can see, we don't get past 30 because they have limited me. They said they've not limited me, but it's either a hell of a coincidence. Every single time I do a live, I'm stuck at 30, or they limit me. And yeah, they limit me. But I appreciate the hearts, but you don't really have to. Amy C's wrote, that's all I can tell you about that. That was her replying to other people. Amy C's wrote, that's a cat knocking something over. I have many crazy stories here for that answers, lovelies. We need to get you up one day and chat about it. Amy C's wrote, if we have time travel, I need in on that, please. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would want to go back and I'm guessing backwards instead of forwards to see someone, or Scrolling down, D Boys wrote, "Time travel has to be real. Watch The Simpsons." Yeah, they do come out with some things, don't they? Time check 12:45. I don't know what that is wherever you are. I know. I think you're in America, aren't you? I don't know which time zone in America. So it's 9:47 here, which was weird because I thought I was only going to do a short live. Someone's going to tell me, I knew every time you say you're going to do a short live, you do a long live. D Boys right, AI could be the orbs if electric based. I don't think they're. I think these entities have been around a long time before us. I don't think they're AI. I think these are life forms basically that are eternal as opposed to an AI life form. Amy C's given me 8:49, so wow. Okay, I'll try and be as quick as I can now. Dear boy, especially if time travel's real. Deborah's right. Hey, just got your new book. Thanks for writing. Oh, bless you, Deborah. Thank you very much. Now you can prop the table up with it by using it as a doorstop or something like that. Oh, bless you. Thank you, Deborah. Hope it's enjoyable in some way. Always wary when people get a book and they read it, and I'm frightened at what people say. Amy C's wrote, reset your target thing. I think that's talking to someone. Avatar's wrote, is it written how Marduk rectified the kidnapping of the human women? Were they special women? I'm not sure about the rectified of the human, the kidnapping. He did. So Marduk, I was reading the tablet just today, which is coming out in that Ra video. Who was Ra? Which you can probably guess Marduk. Sorry, there's a cat scratching a bit of plastic. So Marduk would choose a woman every night, a human woman. So the priest would have to go and find a particular woman in. So this is basically Ra, by the way. It's not, even though it's Marduk, it's the Ra story. So they would choose a human woman for Ra, which is obviously shows that Ra wasn't an almighty being. It shows that he was physical. And he had a ziggurat that supposedly might have been the Tower of Babel ziggurat, and on the top of it, so where I was led to believe that it wasn't finished. If we go with the Egyptian story, there was a blue temple on the top, which is interesting because we know it would have been lapis lazuli out of everything that they used, and inside there was this humongous couch, sofa, whatever you want to call it, settee, humongous. Now we know it's humongous because Marduk was probably 20 foot tall, so that's the reason why this couch would have been that long. And each night for a period of time, it's to do with Christmas and stuff like that. Or not Christmas, New Year, and the start of a new year. They would bring a woman to her, but there's another slight version of that where the king of Babylon, which is bearing in mind this is why Ra was Marduk, because my amazing documentary is amazing, because the king of Babylon, even though this is an Egyptian story, would be the avatar of Marduk having the women. But on one night, so it's a slightly different version of the same story. So yeah, that video is coming out in 5 days, the Ra video, and it'll probably blow people's minds, as I do with all my videos. So going back to the kidnapping, I don't know what kidnapping you're referring to. Sorry, I know I went off on a tangent there. Amy C's wrote, "Laugh out loud at any old crap." Yeah, the people love other people's videos that make up crap. Diorama's put laughing faces. Brother Bob's back up again. Has wrote, "Is the Disclosure movie worth watching?" I haven't seen it. My birthday is on. You're all going to go, "Oh, happy birthday!" My birthday's on Sunday. So I might go to the cinema on Sunday, and I might take myself with me. and just me and me go, because it's a Spielberg movie, which is, I like Spielberg, and it's about aliens. And the last thing I want to do is have some person with me, whoever it is, going, is that real? Is that an alien? Is that what they look like? Excuse me. So I'm tempted to go on my own, because I don't want any distractions. Because you know what people are like; they'll be going, is that Area 51? Is that da da da? I'm hoping they wouldn't, but yeah. Anyway, so yes, I haven't seen it yet. So I can't say. Brother Bob's wrote "Search for Gold." They need to look down the back of the sofa. Yeah. That was when I was talking about the movie that I'm making. You can watch a trailer of it on AnunnakiFilm.com if you're interested. It's not the official trailer. I've got to make that, because I knocked up something. Basically, it wasn't the proper trailer, because obviously I wanted to show people stuff, but I haven't even finished the film, so you can't really do a proper trailer until you finish the film, because there's footage that you could use in the trailer that I haven't used yet because I haven't made it. So, but yeah, so there'll be a proper official trailer coming. Brother Bob's wrote, "Do the Anunnaki have sofas?" Funny enough, yes, they do. Literally, I was just talking about Marduk and this extra long sofa. So yes, they did. They literally did. I mean, just look at the Greek gods and the Roman gods, and you'll see them on their sort of legions, or whatever they're called. I don't know the word for it. I can't pronounce it, even if I did know the word. Shaylong, something like that. That's yeah. So they had those kind of things going on. Avatar's right. Hollywood is gone. When you see I've shown, like I say, I've got a sequence, because you can do anything you want with AI, unfortunately. So while I was making this movie, I've obviously, I've had the script for about 3 years, that I wrote myself, and I wanted a new scene in there with a bit more action, so that periodically there's action in the movie. And I come up with the idea of having a plane land on this humongous bridge crossing a valley. A massive long bridge, thin bridge that's got no, it's not a suspension bridge, it's supported from underneath. So I've got this sequence of this sort of almost like a Learjet flying over low trees, coming in and actually landing on this bloody bridge. Literally just fits on the bridge, and then finally comes to a halt. And then you've got the characters running on the bridge to catch up to get in the plane. Of course, there's a train coming to add a bit more suspense to it. But that wasn't in the script originally. And, when I can do that and it looks as good as any Hollywood movie, because obviously, I had to keep paying to the generations till I get it spot on. And obviously, the way I edit and everything, I'm a quick editor. Meaning the film's quick. It's never. None of my films are boring because I edit quick, if you understand what that means. So yes, sorry, I'm boring you guys, but Hollywood is, once this film comes out as a feature film, probably the first feature film ever, and a good story, a freaking good story, ultra enjoyable. It is. It's going to blow Hollywood out the water, because people will be going, right, well, if he's done that on his own, that's the end of it. And I mean, the acting is phenomenal. Obviously, I tell it what I want, because I know what I want as a director. And sometimes it takes me 10, 15 tries, which costs money, but I get what I want. I want, certain looks from people and stuff, and I do it over and over until I get what I'm after. So that's the difference, I guess, being a filmmaker, whereas some people will just be happy with the first generation, stick it all together and make a video, and people will be going, oh, that's not very good. But mine is good, and I don't mean to sound big-headed, but it is freaking good. You're going to love it. You're all going to be like, wow. Anyway, Joe V's wrote, I'll definitely share when it's ready. That's to do with the film. Thank you very much. Brothers wrote, make the ads 50 minutes long each, get that revenue. Oh, bless. I'm not doing it for the money, but thank you for saying that. But yeah, it's I just kind of want people, if they're interested in the story, I want people to go somewhere that they can trust with evidence, which is my site. Because I don't, there's people out there that make up all sorts of crap. Avatars wrote, do you think Anunnaki have tiny bladder because they get up and down so much. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's a fair question because obviously we don't know their physiology. Because we assume, I assume, because they look like us, that all their internal organs are exactly the same places. But you got to remember, we're part Anunnaki and part Neanderthal, and then later on we're part Homo sapien and Anunnaki to create the Homo sapiens sapiens. So, how much difference? Now, they did have kids with us, so it does seem that a lot of their physiology is the same as ours, if that's the right word. Brother Bob's wrote, why do the Anunnaki have lovely little handbags? Did they invent them for women? So I have done a video on it. If you look at their gowns or their robes, which is funny how God had a robe in the Bible, or depicted as having a robe. The Anunnaki had these robes, and if you look, they had belts where they had all sorts of things tucked down the belts. It was like bloody Batman's utility belt. Have a look at the carvings, you'll see belts have all sorts of weird and wonderful things attached to them. Daggers and all sorts of things. However, they don't have pockets. No pockets. So when you read, so Oxford University translation of the Sumerian tablets, type in, I've done a whole video if you're interested, just go on my website, click on my profile. But basically, they talk about having leather bags. So the actual Anunnaki used bags. It's not a bucket. It's not something else. It's a bag. They used bags, and they tell you what they put roughly in some of the descriptions. That the lapis lazuli, beads, makeup, all sorts of weird things that they put in there. So yeah, it was a bag. Basically, they didn't invent pockets, which sounds stupid, or they did have, they didn't trust pockets, or whatever it is. Was it because they handed it to one person to another? I don't know. Now we've got the exact same bag in the Baghdad Museum, smaller version, but exact same bag with the little curls and everything else. And it's a leather bag, so it's exactly the same looking as the larger ones that the Anunnaki had. So in other words, us smaller humans would have walked around with the same bags as well. So we've got that evidence there. I did do a TikTok video because an ex-girlfriend of mine went to Egypt, and I told her, or asked her nicely, could she take pictures of absolutely everything, and she did. And as I was going through all the pictures, I was like, oh, wow, didn't brilliant. So I did a TikTok video showing that bag and then showing the handbag that the Anunnaki held in a carving, and they're identical, absolutely identical. And of course, as I say, they do tell us that they carried bags. Brother Bob's right. Can you find them in pharmacy? You can find them in the pharmacy. My local has loads. I apologise. I'm slightly behind on the messages, so I'm not quite sure that I was referring to. Juice has joined and wrote, good evening, OT. Hi, Juice. Nice of you to join. Welcome. Juice has wrote, sorry, I'm tapping. That's all right. It didn't. We're still stuck at 30, as you see, so it's bless you. Thank you for doing that, but yeah, I'm limited. Caroline's wrote, hi Caroline's, nice of you to join again. Thank you. Nicole's wrote, do we know what the name of the language that the Anunnaki speak is? You mean their name for their language? No, unfortunately. So from my research, as you've probably seen, I've done a video where I show that Inanna wrote a love letter. I was chatting to AI about this the other day on one of my chats, and it said, no, it's not. And I said, yes, it is. We can go check your facts. And it came back and said, yeah, you're right. It's always doing that. It's line thing. Anyway, so yes, Inanna wrote in her own handwriting herself, and that's backed up by Samuel Noah Kramer, who was one of the, I'd probably say, the foremost translator on Sumerian. He even could not only read Sumerian but also speak it. So he reads out her love letter on a video, which I've put on one of my videos. You can look it up online if you want. And so, in order for her to write a love letter to Dumuzi, her lover, would she have used a different language? Because even though the gods were in different places at one point, so after the flood they changed. After the Tower of Babel incident, which was way later after the flood, we're talking a few thousand years later, then the languages changed. But prior to that, Dumuzi was still alive, which means it would have been the Sumerian language that was used prior to the Tower of Babel incident. So Dumuzi died. So we've got a time reference and everything. It's amazing because of that. That's when Inanna went after Marduk, which Marduk ended up hiding in a pyramid. So we can work out all the time frame on that. So we know that the love letter to Dumuzi was pre the different languages, and it was in Sumerian because he read it out in Sumerian. So we can say that the Anunnaki, certainly here on Earth, used one language first, and that was what we know as the Sumerian language, which is why there's no derivation off of it, because it's a standalone language. It was their language. And that's why on the Voyager craft that was sent back in the 70s into deep space, it's now hopefully going to get into deep space, but it had the gold disc on there and it had Sumerian word for hello, like a record, and it's a totally dead language. It's a one-off language, so the chances that an alien on another planet would understand the word hello from one language that had no deviation off of it at all. The only other language that we're aware of is the Basque people that has the same thing. So the chances that Voyager will bump into an alien, they'll play it and go, oh, that hello there in Sumerian from a one language on a planet that we've never come across before, we understand that. No, of course no, it didn't. It's because the people that sent that freaking Voyager knew that the Anunnaki might pick it up. In other words, don't touch it. Anyway, yeah. So basically, the Sumerian language, in my opinion, is their own language, which is what they would have spoke first. Scrolling down. Thank you, JT. Thank you very much. As Amy C has wrote, I want to go explore Antarctica. Why don't people just go who have the money? There's no fly zones, etc. So, although supposedly you can request to go certain places, the company that you request is backed up by the military. So, even though it sounds like it's a standalone company that's looking after Antarctica, in other words, any flights going in or out, it's not. It's a front for the military to see, to basically say no to people. So although supposedly you can request it, not one person's ever managed to get anywhere other than where their designated areas are. So if you try and go there, you really need an aeroplane, unless you want to do a stock Scott of the Antarctica. So if you do go there with an aeroplane, you will have a message come through saying back off. So yeah, you ain't going to get there, and you got to remember this. It's the size of America, so to even get close to the bit where there's no ice, is you'll be flying for a long period, and they'll pick you up for sure, and you'll be escorted back, or possibly even destroyed, depending how far you got in. Gen X has wrote, can the ruler in Nibiru still control who can rule Earth? Ruler of 50 make changes. So the rank of 50 was basically the 50 names of previous Titans. So the Titans were the gods, the kings on Nibiru. No one else worked that out. I have. Yay me, yet again, another one. I should be knighted. I should also stop being big-headed, but I can't help it. That's why I only do one show a night. Sorry. So yes. So the rank of 50 is the 50 names given to the previous kings. So in other words, he's now the most high. So that's what happened with. That's why Enlil was rank of 50, and then which was the most high, and then Marduk became the most high, still 50, not 49 or 51, because he took over from Enlil. No, it's because he took over from the previous kings of Nibiru, which were called Titans. Enki and Poseidon, they weren't. Poseidon, Neptune, and not Neptune. Poseidon and Zeus weren't Titans, but Uranus was, and so was Kronos, and they were. Uranus was King Anu, and Kronos was, with evidence, 100% evidence, was Alula. All shown on my amazing documentaries. All you have to do is just go to my website, and you'll be blown away with the evidence that I've found. So going back to your question, sorry, I'm only hyping myself up because no one else, if you're new here, you're probably thinking, is he talking crap? I don't talk crap, unless you think I'm talking crap, in which case I am now talking crap. Ruler of 50, make changes. So if when King Anu was on Nibiru, and which is their home planet, and Enlil, Enki, etc. was here, King Anu still had final say. So when, for example, they was going to allow the Great Flood to happen, the ice shelf to break off, instead of saving people, King Anu said, and that was his decree, and it was final. And so, even though he wasn't on Earth, King Anu's decree. So if we take that King Anu's maybe not on Nibiru anymore, should probably still be, but let's assume that Ninurta took over, then Ninurta would have final say here still, I would imagine. So that's a good question. Got number 3 in the class for that. D-Boys wrote, it's supposed to be 1 in Greenland too. Yeah, I did mention that in the end. Kerry's wrote, hi everyone, sorry I'm late, had a meeting. And no worries at all, Kerry. You've arrived exactly when you wanted to arrive. Avatar's wrote, do you think the Anunnaki mothership and its pilots are DNA symbiotic in oneness when flown telepath? Do you think the Anunnaki and its pilots are DNA symbolic? No, it was a tough question to try and get my head around. You mean, are the craft organic and symbiotic with people? I have heard of craft that are alien, life forms, and I have heard that they can travel for. But the problem was there was a program called Farscape around that same sort of time that I heard that, and Farscape kind of did the same sort of thing. So I'm not quite sure whether or not it's true. Whether someone come up with the idea of that, but I don't think so. I think these are technology-based craft. If anyone would do that, it would probably be the Greys or someone else like that. But I mean, to capture a life force and force it to do all of that, it's probably easier just to build a spaceship. Really, I would have thought. It's an interesting question, though. Jane has wrote, hi, God. Hi, Goddess Jane. Welcome. Avatar's wrote, I meant Inanna's second coming in her own human body as ascended one. Ah, right. Okay, I see what you're saying. You could say that. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's what it's referring to, but you could absolutely say that. It makes, brilliant. Well done. Get gold star for that. If that's, I can't say it's true, but I can't say it's not. It's interesting. Well done. Kerry's wrote, you mentioned lapis lazuli buildings on Earth. Any remnants of them? Oh, I haven't looked. The problem is the original buildings were done before the Great Flood, and as we know, Africa and the Middle East got hit first because that's where the ice shelf slid off from Antarctica and would have hit them first as per Oxford University said, as per the evidence of sand, sediment, etc. coming inland. So those type of buildings probably would have gone. Then you've got us humans 1,000 years ago, after all the Anunnaki decided to move on, still probably on Earth. Did we knock down those buildings for materials? I mean, supposedly we took stuff off of the Great Pyramid, the outer casing stones and stuff, so that we could build. This is what makes me laugh. Mainstream say we took the outer casing stones off of the Great Pyramid so that we could take those stones miles and miles and miles to Thebes, so that we can then build where there's already stone a building. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. But yeah, so I've never looked into whether or not there's any still buildings. I mean, Ninurta's building's still around. That's under, obviously, that one, whatever time period that was. That's underneath. They found that, and they've dug down and they found tablets, etc. But they haven't described what's in there, so it could have lapis lazuli building that. Thank you, whoever that was. Sometimes I look away and don't see whatever's happening on the screen. It's worth me looking into. I doubt if we'll find any, because when you look at Mesopotamia and all the places where the main cities were, they're literally just buried now. There's a few mounds here and there. I mean, we're lucky, we've got places like Lebanon and stuff, which has still got some remnants because they're massive and these were built after the Great Pyramid, after the Great Flood. So yeah, I would say we probably wouldn't find any, and even if we did, would the mainstream tell us that they found it? Because that would show a level of sophistication that people shouldn't have had to be able to cut in that time period. Obviously, we've got buildings that they've done in India that they shouldn't have had, but that's newer. The Indian temples are about 1,000 to 2,000 years old, whereas a lapis lazuli building in anywhere like Sumeria, Sippar, Lagash, any of those places would have been 8,000. Mainstream will say 5,000 years ago, 4,500. That's because that's mainstream trying to shoehorn everything to the fake date that they've got for Khufu's pyramid. But yeah, it would have been way before, and so they certainly wouldn't probably want to tell us that. But would humans have built, took the building apart? Possible. I don't know. It's a tricky one. It's a really good question. Good number. One in the class. That I like that question. Thank you. I don't know the answer. Chances are we'll never find it, even if there was. And Nicholas wrote, why do you think the Ajiji stole human women? Why not go back to Nibiru if they wanted a mate? Thank you, I couldn't pronounce that, but thank you for that. So basically, they're here on Earth. It's a really good question. They're here on they were here on Mars. Their way station called Lachmo, and supposedly, if we believe the Moorhen translations, they were invited down to the wedding of Marduk, and they got upset because down here people were having kids with humans, and these are all young men on Mars who were getting fed up the fact that they're working really hard, and down here there's they're having a good time. And so they decided to come down and steal human women and make them their wives, as it says in the Bible. So why didn't they go back to their home planet? Because technically they're here to do a job, which is, be the away station and refine the gold and transport it back to Nibiru. Also, I guess in some ways, let's imagine, and I don't mean to sound rude, but let's imagine you're an ugly Ajiji. And you're one of 300. Out of all the Ajijis, you're the one that sort of looks like you've been dropped on your face. And you've got acne, and you're awkward, and you're a bit shy, and everything else. And you go back to your home planet. Let's imagine they did that, and they go back to their home planet, and it's like, "Excuse me, would you want to go out with me?" And she goes, no. And he goes around to all the women and they say no. Or we go the other version. You can go grab a woman and she's got no choice but to be your wife. Okay, I'll go with that one. So I think probably that might be the case. I'm just saying that, it certainly might be the case for one or two of them. So there's a whole tablet on that, and the description of the names of the ringleaders, etc., of the Ajiji that started the whole rebellion. Some people say, oh, that's Lucifer, and that obviously I've proved who Lucifer was. If you're interested in who Lucifer was, go watch my video called Lucifer Solved, and you'll find it was a king. I'm not going to say the name here because otherwise it's pointless me doing that amazing research, solving it with evidence. But yeah, it's a really good question. But they're here. We don't. The thing is they don't tell us how long it takes before they can transfer the gold to Nibiru. So, for all we know, it could be 3,600 years because obviously it's an orbit. Are they going to wait 3,600 years? Now, bearing in mind Mars has almost, give or take, the sort of same rotation as Earth. So, are they going to? Their years are slightly different to our years. Are they going to wait that long? Yeah, obviously to them, it's depending where Nibiru was at the time. So it made sense that they probably got angry there and then that Marduk was marrying and other people were having children with the Anunnaki, with humans. So it kind of makes sense. But good question. Go number 2 in the class for that, if I haven't already put you anywhere. Scrolling down. Cotsworth, probably missed it, but did anything happen with your alternative to doing this here? So I did have, I was sorting it all out, and I thought, fortunately, I had other things I was doing, and someone offered to sort the final part out, but they haven't done it. They've had health issues, etc. And so because I left it with them, I started work on or finishing the Bible rewritten book. If anyone's interested, it's out on Amazon. And I then obviously started work on this movie, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. So I will get round to finishing the live chat probably once I've finished the movie. But my sort of first love is movies, and I've been filming them since I was 15, I think, 15. So way back in 1985, I think I got my first camera. Yeah, probably 85. Paper rounds, 12 of them. Ridiculous. Whole weekend. Yeah, so I will get back round to it, but it's a lower priority now than the thing that I'm thoroughly enjoying doing. Avatars wrote, tattoos where you're sedated for 6 hours, exercise through computers while you sit and eat, and GLP poeted. I don't know what that's. That's when I was talking about. Okay, and then you said already lazy. Yeah, I know what you meant now. D Boys wrote, without a soul, wouldn't we just be organic robot golems? No, see. To me, the soul is basically like a hard drive in a RAID system. I don't know if you know what a RAID system is. Basically, a RAID system is where you have more than one hard drive, and it's copying exactly the same as what the first hard drive is copying. So that way, you've got a redundancy, you've got a backup. And so, to me, my consciousness and everything else is here. And so, if I don't have an orb with me, I'm still me. It's just not being backed up by this plasma orb. So I don't think there's animals that probably haven't got pineal glands, which we know there's animals that don't have pineal glands, and they're still moving around. Just all right, they may not have the same level of consciousness as us, and understanding and things like that, but they're still doing their thing. So they're not an automaton or anything like that. So I do think it's just literally it lapping up everything that it can learn from us. Genexus wrote, did Marduk really forsaken his son Jesus, or he was just unable to save him in time or unaware? Well, if we go by the Bible, it's a fair question. If we go by the Bible, then he looks up and sees a light in the sky and says, "Why have you forsaken me?" Now, would Marduk have come down and saved him? The whole point is, if you watch my documentaries on Marduk, why Marduk created Jesus, and that he was Jesus, it was because he wanted him as a king to take over from Herod. Well, not take over, to replace Herod. And Herod found out about that, and that's why he got killed, tried to kill all the newborn boys. So it's all there. It all plays out properly. And so when Jesus wasn't basically useful anymore, I would say that Marduk was quite happy to let him go. Personally, there's no, he was a pacifist, and that's not what Marduk wanted. So he just, I believe, in my opinion, is that he let him die, and that's exactly why Jesus shouted out, "Why have you forsaken me? Because you didn't do what I bloody created you for." And that's it. Because you've got to remember, when you look at Emetep Emetep II, I think it is, who had the elongated skull, the first elongated skull, that was what Isis was holding as a baby. Emetep II, and so when he grew up, he had the elongated skull, and he was the first elongated skull pharaoh that was suddenly put in position of power with the elongated skull, and that's because he had an elongated skull, because Isis was Marduk's great granddaughter, and so clearly Marduk created pharaohs to be put in positions of power, and that's where we get all of the genuine elongated skulls around the world. Were all in positions of power, and that's why normal people headbound theirs to emulate their leaders, which is true. So I would say he forsaken him and left him. Nicole's wrote, did the Anunnaki take any substances in order to experience spiritual or paranormal experiences? If they did, I've not read it. I mean, the closest we've got is the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, where he goes into the pyramid and has an out-of-body experience, but some people don't believe that tablets or those translations. I do, but there's too much in there. Whoever wrote that, if it's fake, whoever wrote it knows more than me. So, but would they have? If they did, they didn't say. There's nothing that I've read that people smoked, anything or anything like that, or Anunnakis did anything like that. That's not to say they didn't. I can't say that that they didn't talk about going to toilet. So it doesn't mean that they didn't go to toilet. They just don't talk about it. So it's totally possible that they may have. They drank. They certainly bloody well drank. We've got so many tablets of them drinking and getting drunk. So they certainly used that as an enjoyment thing. But anything else, I've not read. Sorry, but good question. Your number 3 in the class for that. Anunnaki. Nicole's wrote, did the Anunnaki have tattoos? Couldn't it be where we get it from? So I did look into it. The problem I've got is the carvings of the Anunnaki don't show any kind of other image on them, like, in other words, like a tattoo of a lion or anything. So it's not to say that they didn't have tattoos, but none of the carvings show them. Now you could say, well, maybe the carvings just didn't bother showing them, but if you look at the intricate detail of the robes and everything else, and the muscles and the fingernails and the watches that they wore, which wasn't watches, and the jewelry and everything else, you'd think they would have probably put the tattoo on there, but then you could argue, well, maybe it was on their back, somewhere that was covered over when obviously these carvings and statues were done. So I would probably say no, but I can't say for sure. So it's a good question. Go number 3 in the class for that, but I can't say no, but I can't say yes. My gut feeling is no. Sensei wrote, have you read The Secret Gospel of John? It states the devil blew his spirit into man. Thank you, K Boogie. K Boogie, I've got your name finally. Thank you. Have you read The Secret Gospel of John? It states the devil blew his spirit into man. I have. I can't remember that particular phrase off by heart, so forgive me. But obviously, if we extrapolate that from that, obviously the devil, there is no such thing as a devil. So if we extrapolate that into the Anunnaki, then you've got the closest you'll have is Nurgle, which was the god of the underworld, and he certainly wasn't creating man, and he wasn't. I mean, the closest you've got is the Error epic, where he does go and destroy people from above, which is interesting because obviously, how the hell can people write that about flying craft when they didn't have flying craft? Of course it did. But no, I can't answer that, I'm afraid, because I can't recall reading it. And then you wrote it was removed from the Bible. I wonder why. That's probably why I'm struggling to remember it. Yeah, I can see why. But and then you wrote blew his spirit into Adam. So it would have, yeah. So if we, okay, well, obviously it wouldn't be the devil. It would have been God Dingir, which would have been Enki. So they did cut. They've actually got the tablet. I think it was the Artrahasis that tells us they cut one of the Anunnaki's heads off, and then put the ghost of that into the new person that they were creating, which was Adamu. Adam, by the way, Adam and Eve came along 200,000 years after the very first Homo sapien, and you could say, but hang on a minute, no, they were the first people. Then I would say to you, well, who did Cain go and marry? If Cain, Abel, Adam, and Eve were the only people here on the planet, who did Cain go off and marry? Oh, yeah. So, Cain and Abel came along. Adam and Eve came along 200,000 years after. So they were the first Homo sapiens. They were the intelligent ones. Scrolling down. Nicole's wrote, TikTok has kicked me out twice. Thank you, Nicole, for letting me know that. So as you can see, we're limited to 30 people. And if we get more than 30, people get booted out. I'm going to screen grab that. So it shows 30 people. I'm going to send them another message. But you're not limited. So it's just a coincidence that I started this live saying that we're going to be limited to 30 people and we're stuck at 30 people. Yes, it's a coincidence. Every single time. Yes, it's a coincidence. You've only got 30 people that listen to you. But not all of them are exactly the same people each time. Yes, it's a coincidence. Sorry. Darren's wrote, what's your thoughts on Foo Fighters? Well, I mean, technically they are UFOs. It was just another name for them. So, yes, we still got UFOs to this day. In fact, obviously, the White House is trying to get UFO images and videos out now. So, yes, Foo Fighters were around back then. Really, all they were doing was just watching what was going on. There's no stories that I'm aware of. I mean, there was some planes, supposedly, like German planes that were shooting at them, but this was reported by the Allies, saying that they saw Germans trying to shoot at this object that was, buzzing around. But yeah, so it seems like the Foo Fighters, the UFOs at that point were just curious. Unless they had a job to do, but all the descriptions of them at the time during the war kind of made it sound like they were just curious. That's the way I've got the information from. But obviously they may have had jobs to do. But why fly close to warplanes? If you've got a job to do, go higher, go lower. Don't seem to fly around them, which is what makes me think that they were curious. Shannon's wrote, I've had visits from Anunnaki. It's been many years. They told me and showed me things and warned me. Oh, how do I do this? Okay, so the Anunnaki are at least probably about 20 foot tall. Um, they talk in obviously their own language, and they don't have telepathy abilities. So I'm not knocking you because I know you follow me. I'm just trying to sort of give you some guidance that it may not be the Anunnaki. They're blonde. Some of them may have red hair, blue eyes or red eyes. Um, so unless you saw one of them somehow, and they really don't want to talk to normal people. They didn't back then. They didn't as Egyptian gods, Roman gods, Greek gods, Babylonian gods, Indian gods. They didn't want to talk to us. So without sounding rude, the chances that an Anunnaki decided that you was worthy of talking to um, is very slim. I'm trying to be polite. So I'm just saying it may not be an Anunnaki. Um, Amy C's wrote, "Oh wow! So it was a bag. It was a communication device. So I think the watch was the communication device. That's my gut feeling on that. And I've stuck that in the movie actually. And the bag is literally just a bag. Honestly, good to type in or just watch one of my videos where it's talking about the Anunnaki bag, and I literally read out, that Enki's holding a leather bag. They had bags. Thank you, Kerry. Uh, Jane had wrote to Shannon. How did they visit you? History and Coins wrote, I'm here while dogs go to toilet. Thank you, History and Coins. Amy's wrote, I meant it wasn't a communication that what I'm being led to believe. All right, okay, cool. Shannon's wrote, they were very loving, not mean. Okay, it probably isn't the Anunnaki then, personally. People were asking Shannon to enlighten them a bit more on it. Shannon wrote, they would take me from my bed and told me things like learn quantum physics. I really don't think that was the Anunnaki. If anything, it would have been Zeta Reticuli. They're the sort of people that would do that, or aliens that would do that, but not the Anunnaki. There's no, unless you was a demigod, which would have been direct offspring off of them, in which case you'd still probably be 5 years old at this point because they did still have longer life. I don't think it's the Anunnaki, personally, if you don't mind me saying so. Kerry's wrote, so did they speak English? Kerry's going with that same train of thought that I thought of, that they would have spoken their own language and they didn't have telepathy. James wrote, that makes no sense. How? Quantum physics is theory, not fact. Avatars wrote, Inanna and Dumuzi sure had unique love language. Yeah, they really did love each other. I mean, I love the story of Inanna, how you can read it yourself if you're interested, but how he wanted to court her, and she says, yeah, but the guy that was here earlier, he offered me. Dumuzi was a shepherd. He was the youngest son of Enki. And Inanna goes, yeah, but the guy that was just here, he did. I can't remember what the job was, but he did a better job than a shepherd. So what are you going to do for me? And Dumuzi's like, well, I'll make you a coat out of the sheep's wool. Yeah, but the other guy did this and offered me that. And Dumuzi's like, well, I will, I'll dye it and make it a nice colour for you. And she's like, yeah, but I could, the other guy she's a character, absolute character. You've got to read it. Is literally she had him wrapped round her little finger. Shannon's wrote, last time I saw was a teardrop rainbow. They shut any equipment down, but they asked who I was, but I asked what they were, but I messed up the name and called them Anunnaki. I caused military to chase and I wasn't sure. I was scared at first, but I became very much to love them. Yeah, I really don't think it's the Anunnaki. Nicole's wrote, do you think the Anunnaki chose Antarctica because of the weather, the cold? It's a good question. I did think that myself. Um, I did think that myself, but after 400,000 years in the hot country, you'd think they would have climatized to the hot country by then. But I mean, I guess it's a bit of both because if there was no humans on in Antarctica, no one could get to Antarctica because of the ice, wall, as some people call it, because it's high and literally, if he was trying to get to the inland, I mean, even Scott of the Antarctica had trouble trying to do it, and that was with sleds and stuff. So no one's really going to go to Antarctica unless you've got a flying craft, and at that time, 1,000 years ago, no one had a flying craft. So the chances of anyone bumping into the Anunnaki at all was zero. So that made sense. And again, I did think about the cold side of it. Would they have preferred that there than the blistering hot heat in Middle East or Africa? So yes, it's a fair question. So go number 3 in the class for that. That's a good question. A lot of good questions today. Shannon's right. I asked to go see their home. It was orange. Knock knock. Who's there? Orange. Orange who? Orange, you glad to see me? Yeah. Okay, I'll stick with my research instead. Shannon's right. I had many witnesses, and one was in the government, which made me a target. So History and Conscience wrote, no, he's not talking crap. All evidence is valuable on his site. I'm not sure whoever said I'm talking crap, but feel free to watch. Thank you, History and Conscience. Feel free to watch one of my documentaries, and with your evidence, prove my evidence wrong. Whoever it is, just don't say crap, because that just means I could say yours is crap. You have to have evidence to prove my evidence wrong. If anyone thinks that my evidence is wrong, feel free to show evidence to the contrary. If for some reason I've got my evidence wrong, I would be happy to learn. Jade, scrolling down, Shannon's wrote, they had me close my eyes, but one landing may have been government. It's 9:30. I've just looked at the time. Shannon's right. At first, they wanted my attention, so they locked up my car, which was not possible. I don't think that's Anunnaki. I mean, that's not their Mirandus opera, whatever it is, MO. That's not what the Anunnaki would do. They really didn't. They never really saw us. When they had demigods, they were the ones that would be sort of intermediates. They were what you know as angels, messengers. So the chances of an Anunnaki actually coming picking someone out of no, sorry, don't hate me. K Boogie's wrote, what's the explanation of firmament, and is the story true about human exchange program to Serpo? If you're interested in the evidence that the firmament was the asteroid belt, either read my book called, I'm not sure which chapter it's in and which particular book, but one of my books is, or watch my documentary called Firmament Solved, and you'll see that the firmament was what they called the hammer bracelet, which was the vault between one heaven and another, which is heaven is space, by the way. So yes, that's the firmament. It's not an invisible dome. It was the asteroid belt. And the story about the human exchange program. Yeah, I mean, I believe it. It's I've heard it a few times. I've heard it from different people. Spielberg obviously made a movie about it, Close Encounters. So I genuinely think it's real. There's, we've had ETs here for a long time, and obviously J-Rod and the Roswell incident and all these kind of things. So I believe it. I do believe it. Yeah, I can't say I've got evidence, but I do believe it. Shannon's wrote, no, I have witnesses to land in sight and them following me, coming close, and it scared me too much. K. Boogers wrote, what explanation read that one? Sometimes people repeat the same question. I'm probably going to have to shoot shortly, guys, because it's coming up to 11 o'clock. My disabled boy normally goes to bed at 10, and I like to try and keep some sort of continuity for him. K. Boogies wrote, what explanation is the third time that's been written? Sorry, and the cats are bugging me as well. So I'll read a couple more questions. If you're new to me, just go to my website. Click on my profile, go to my website. You'll be blown away by the things I've... Honestly, it's not just Anunnaki. There's other stuff there. You'll find something. There's thousands of things. Bigfoot, all sorts of stuff. Crystal skulls, you name it. You'll find something you'll like there. So I'll just read a couple more and then I'll have to shoot. Shannon's right. I never saw what they looked like. I was told not to look. Yeah, they probably wouldn't have been Anunnaki. K. Boogie's wrote, what's the fifth time or whatever that is of the same question? K. Boogie's wrote, our community just teared up. I don't know whether you wrote that or whether it automatically done that. I'm just trying to find a question. Forgive me for not reading Shannon's out anymore. Nicole's right. How do you think the orbs reproduce? I don't know how. I can't answer that. I don't think we know enough about plasma. It's a good question. I can't answer that because we just don't know enough about plasma to understand, let alone a life form as plasma, how it would reproduce. So I can't answer that. Nicole's a brilliant question. Go number 3, but I can't answer it, I'm afraid. Scrolling down, time check from Jane's 10:30. Thank you, Jane. I'm just going to try and find questions. Jane had to shoot. Nicole's wrote, did the Anunnaki have a favourite pet? Like we have dogs or cats, for example. Inanna has the lions. She liked lions. Marduk had that Mushu. So that's only because we've got carvings of them with it. So the other ones probably had pets, but just didn't have carvings with them. So yes, I would imagine they had pets. If 2 of them had pets, then more than likely others did. But we've only got the 2 carvings of those. So good question. Go number 3 again in the class. And I've caught up. History and Coins wrote ourtruehistory.co.uk, which is my website. Thank you very much, everybody, for bearing with me. And if you're new to me, just click my profile, go to my website. You will find documentaries that you should love. And if you don't, why not? Darwin wrote, thank you very much, Archie. You're more than welcome. Thank you to you guys. Excellent questions. This one's worthy, I think, of going up on YouTube. Clearly, I was limited to 30 today, as usual. But thank you very much. Nichols wrote, thank you, Ultra House. It's always wonderful to learn from you. You're more than welcome. JT's wrote, cheers. Chantel's still here and so wrote, bye-bye. Thank you very much for staying, guys. And I will catch you all again very, very soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you. And thank you to the moderators as well. Bless you guys. Thank you. Bye.